The simple pragmatic solution.
I would like to call this regular meeting of the Scio Township Board of Trustees to order. We'll have the roll call and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hathaway,
Present.
Palmer, absent, Flintoff, present, Brazeau,
Present.
Carey, present, Noel, present, Riser,
Present.
we have quorum.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is adoption of the agenda. Are there any comments on the agenda before we move forward? Someone prepared to move the agenda as proposed?
So moved.
Support. Moved by Flintoff, support by Riser. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the agenda is adopted. We have next communications to the board. Is there any comment on those? They're in the packet. Next item is public comment. This is a time for members of the public to speak for up to 3 minutes on any matter under the purview of the Board of Trustees.
Mark will be the
Mark will be
timekeeper.
Mark will be the timekeeper.
Thanks, Mark.
And our practice is to hear first from those who are present in Township Hall, and then we turn to those who are participating remotely. When it's your turn, if you would please come forward and have a seat at the table. Who was first?
We'll hold a hard 3 minutes because we have a big agenda.
We have a long agenda, so we will be enforcing the 3-minute limitation. Oh.
That's acoustics.
Well, yes, I guess that's right. We have recently turned to the microphone at the podium. If you could speak at the podium, that makes it easier when there's a large audience for everyone to hear. And when speaking, this is for everyone, when speaking into the microphone, please aim it right at your mouth, if you can.
So my name is Kelly Frudig. I live at 8040 Scio Church Road, and that's Misty Farm, and I also own property at 7650, which is the valley. And I'm here in, I know I have 3 minutes, so I've got lots of thoughts in my head. We'll see what comes out. But I am the owner and the creator of both Misty Farm and Misty Valley. And I am here because on August 9th, after your August 8th meeting, I had a friend send me an email and said, hey, you really need to take a look at this. And what I saw, what was said about myself personally, about my home and about my business was so upsetting. And it's really upsetting. I mean, I don't engage a lot in this township meeting because when I do look, it's so toxic here and it's hard to be. And I feel for those who aren't toxic, but have to endure it. So it's hard to listen and to watch, but I had to listen and watch. And it's really hard to be lied about. It's really hard that people come and we have 2 people in particular. That would be Ann Streeter, who lives also on Scio Church Road, and Jamie Wingler, who are both non-Scio residents, but are Lodi Township residents. And it's really hard for me to watch them come and say lies and lies about us. And you know, it's been a couple of years that we've constantly had the police being called on us. Anne has called the police on us multiple times, and the police come out and say to us, why are we here? And I say, exactly, I don't know. She's called the police when we've had people sitting alongside the road waiting for me to get down there to open a gate. By the time I get there, the police are there, and I'm like, why are you here? And they're like, I don't know, you tell me. She called the building department when I had my Amish team building my silo cap, and they were behind my barn, and she didn't know what was going on. And so Deb Schmidt came out and she said, what are you doing? And they said, we're building a cap for the silo. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's harassment. And I feel like I've been bullied by her and harassed by her, and also Jamie and his comments. But more disturbing what they said is what the quorum that took place amongst you all here in the trustees And that was concerning myself and concerning my business. And I have spent the last 12, 13 years building this business. It's built with a lot of love, a lot of personal finances, and thousands of hours. And we, one of the things I really want to communicate is what we have created in Scio Township with the Valley and Misty Farm is such a beautiful thing. And we've asked a lot of our friends and a lot of business owners to come and to speak and share their own personal experiences. We've built a beautiful thing, and it serves the community. It serves charities. It brings in millions of dollars to small businesses and hundreds of thousands to charities. And so I'm going to let people speak for themselves, but I think I need to represent and be representing myself instead of being made some type of a crazy villain. So, which I'm not. So I live in Scio, I love it, and we're all about building community. So I'll let the community speak.
Thank you.
Kelly.
Let's see if we can fix that microphone. Before anybody else speak, let's, hold on just 1 second, see. Okay. See that microphone flipped on? Is there an on-off switch or something maybe?
It's on, yeah.
All right. I couldn't, maybe you really have to speak into it or something.
All right, I'll hold it.
That's
Yeah,
better.
that's much better.
Okay. Yeah, so I just want to ask a couple rhetorical questions. If we have two neighbors in Lodi Township who, if you just listen to half of what they say is true, we should have a ton of people in Scio Township completely upset and in here every week. Because if we run that bad a business, as they say, Jamie and Ann, then all these Scio Township neighbors that live a lot closer to our properties than they do would be up in arms and in here every other week. But they're not. Why? Because they appreciate what we do, they love our business, and they're supportive. We have community on our side over in Scio Township. This is not a problem. There's not a noise problem. There's not a traffic problem. There is none of these that are being talked about. And we have documentation. We have Tim Hill, who's going to speak later. He's our security officer. He documents everything. We have reports. We've sent them in for years. We continue to send them in. We have all the evidence. I hear people come in here and talk about, oh, you got to have 50% of your revenue in farming. We're not a farm. We never were a farm. We have a special use permit, a contract with this township at both our venues. Has nothing to do with making 50% of our money in farming. If that's the case, shut down Corn Man, shut down all the Robin Hills, all the venues that are out there. They don't make money in farming. They're making money as venues. We have this agreement with the township. The law is on our side. You can't shut us down, so quit talking about it. We are here to stay. The law, as I said, is on our side. We have these things and we don't violate them. The only way that this can be taken away from us is if we have several violations. We've had 2 in 15 years running these businesses. And it was for a car that was parked in our DXL lane. That's it. So if we think we're gonna go forward with this, understand that we are gonna fight tooth and nail because we have a beautiful venue. I've booked weddings out through 2025. So I have contracts that are based because you've given me a contract. I can make contracts with these people. So we run a great business. We have a whole community of people that support us. We also support tons of business in Scio Church Road. I know there's a few people on this board that don't like us. Fine. You don't have to like us, but you're not going to shut us down. So we're here to stay. Let's figure out a way to work together in a positive manner. That's how I look at it. And we don't want to be called in here all the time. I'm not even understanding why we have an agenda on next week, unless it's just to educate everybody on our special use permits, which that's fine. So I'm struggling with this. And why would Ann Streeter, she's so against us, hold her daughter's wedding at our farm? Does that make sense to anybody here? That doesn't make sense to me. And she wasn't worried about traffic that night. She wasn't worried about neighbors that night. 2016 or ordinances. But yet she had her daughter's wedding there. And it was after she no longer needed us that she turned against us. I would call that jealousy. That's the only explanation I can find because we've been successful. So thank you.
Next, please.
Hello, board. My name is Keith McKendry. I reside at 7415 La Prairie Lane and have been there for 22 years. I'm here with my wife, Teresa. We are 1 block east of Misty Farms. And as long as I've lived there, we've never had a problem with Misty Farms, nor as my neighbors. We have 6 other neighbors. We don't hear anything. You could walk out my garage on my deck We see the tent. We've never had a problem with them. So, and I own a small business in Ann Arbor, a restaurant. So I support the Fruitigs and what they do. They're nice people, they're community people, and I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Keith, would you please spell your last name for me?
Sure, McKendry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to go. I'm gonna make this short and sweet because I gotta get home to my 2-year-old daughter for bath time. So I started a local business 2 years ago. I'm a licensed professional counselor and I am a health and fitness coach. I reached out to, well, actually a mutual friend introduced me to Ed and Kelly Fruitig. And the first time I met these people, they treated me just as good as my own family. They gave me such an incredible opportunity and deal to rent out their venue that it helped jumpstart my small business, which is hard to do in these days and times, let me tell you. And it catapulted me to a level that I won't go into. It's amazing what they've done for me. I love them to death. They're some of the best people I ever met. And not only is that true, but because of their generosity, they've allowed me to share my method with hundreds and hundreds of citizens of Ann Arbor that are becoming mentally stronger and physically stronger. And it's just an amazing thing that they've done, and I appreciate the heck out of them. Thanks.
What is your name? What is your name? You're not required to, but if you wish to.
Tim
put it up.
Mann.
So we-
M-A-N-N.
Thank you.
I am Teresa McKendry, Keith's wife. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so as he said, we've lived there for 22 years. I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago, the Fruitigs came to our community. We're on a private road. Everybody can see their farm from our street. And they invited everyone over to their place to look at it, check it out, to find out if we had any questions, any complaints, any concerns. They're lovely. I haven't seen them since because we have absolutely no complaints. We hear nothing. We don't get caught in any kind of traffic. When we drive by, I have a little FOMO. I'd love to go in there and see the parties, but there's no traffic, there's no noise. Our street, nobody on our street has an issue. One of our neighbors said they asked them to put up trees for a little bit of a sound barrier because they are the closest ones to them. And they said they did it right away and they were very happy with it. They are very concerned with any complaints that we have. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ralph Banky. I live at 8236 Scio Church, pretty much right behind Misty Farms. And I've lived there for about 10 years with my wife, and we have no issues with noise or traffic. They're very good people, and we support them 100%. And everything is very good over there.
Hi, folks. My name is Stan Matos. I live at 9110 Scio Church Road. We live not probably 3/4 of a mile from the Fruitigs. We have no issues. Above and beyond that, they have employed our kids in their business. We have hosted multiple venue, events there, memorial services, birthdays. We have invited all of our guests, especially out of state, and out of, just out of multiple states, have always commented how beautiful and what a beautiful area this is. And what a better way to introduce people that don't live here to such a cool area. We know Ann Arbor. This is all part of the Ann Arbor area. And it's important for them to see outside of the Ann Arbor area. And this is one of the venues that does that, and it does it so well. They take care of so many people above and beyond what they need to. They give deals, they, you know, I mean, above and beyond the weddings, et cetera, et cetera. But they have created such a wonderful experience for so many people to expose this area. It is such a plus, and it would be a crime to shut this down. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
Hi, I'm Mary Lynn Bonarosa. I live at 8040 South Church Road. I have the great fortune of living at Misty Farm. I've been friends with Ed and Kelly Frudig for more than 35 years and have seen their lives and their children up close and personal for that time. My daughter grew up with their oldest kids, and I've been intimately involved with them. And then in the last 4 years have lived at Misty Farm. And I can attest to their character as kind and hardworking and generous people. I don't think you'll meet two harder working people than Ed and Kelly Frudig. Their place is absolutely gorgeous. And I think if not all of us, many of us in this room have been to weddings, to funerals, to memorials, to graduation parties, and I have been at all of those at their place. And my daughter and son-in-law were married there, and it was a magical day. It's gorgeous and beautiful. The level of service is fantastic. And from the trails to the gardens to the historical barns that have been restored with an eye for detail, Kelly Frudig creates beautiful things. So I rise in support of their business.
Mary, could you spell your last name for me, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Buonarosa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure you hear me. Actually, my name is Mary Coombier. I was a longtime resident in Scio Township for 35 years and recently moved out. But I'm here in my professional capacity, having worked with nonprofits and coordinating events for 40 plus years. I'm currently a community engagement manager at the Women's Center of Southeastern Michigan. We're a nonprofit that provides mental health counseling, career, financial coaching, and then a variety of support services for women. So I had the pleasure of meeting with Kelly and Ed last year when we were coordinating and looking for a venue for our annual fundraiser. And I understand that there is currently an ongoing conversation about their venue, and I just want to go on record to share my experience, because having coordinated events for 40 plus years, I can truly say that South Township is very lucky. This is the unique venue that's serving the community and showcasing Scio's history, nature, originally a Morgan horse farm. I don't know if anybody knows that. It was pretty exciting to learn. And now it's a very charming venue that's beautiful. And from what you heard from their neighbors, they do a great job of listening to neighbors and attending to their needs and making sure that it's a true community asset here. So my experience when I met with Kelly was, she was very excited to hear that we were women, promoting women. So she's a women-owned business. She was very professional, listened to our needs, kind of, we had several initial meeting, then we had several touch-base meetings, reviewed guidelines, and we were very clear. She gave me a contract. We had goals. We touched base as things changed with the venue in terms of what our needs might be, very flexible. Just having dealt with different venues over 40 years, haven't had this level of service. And I would say Scio Township is really blessed and very fortunate. It's truly a unique venue. The service is above and beyond anything right here, and it offers a great, unique experience. So I happen to also have gone to high school with Ann Streeter, so I was surprised to hear that she had a complaint after having her daughter's wedding there, and I'm really disappointed that I don't know how it got there. I have no idea about the history, but I'd say that, when you do something like that and you have a great experience, you would say thank you. And if you have a concern, you would address it and meet with them personally to resolve it. So I'm just very disappointed to hear that. And I want to put on record to say that it's a lovely venue. Thank you. My name is Mary Kumbier, Kumbier. Okay.
Hello, my name is Nancy Schneebelt. I know you're gonna need me to spell that. SCHNE, B as in boy, ELT. You're welcome. And I'm with the Holiday Inn Express neighbors right here. And I have been with them ever since 2 weeks after they opened, so 2015, a long time. And the whole time, Ed and Kelly, all my brides and grooms, they're so excited about this venue. It is wonderful. It is beautiful. They're wonderful to work with. It's a class act. Excuse me. It would be terrible to see anything close it or anything less than what it is, because it is, people come from all over and it impacts our hotel in such a positive way. We get room blocks every weekend. Every time they have a wedding, we do room blocks. Now, I can speak for all the hotels, not just mine, because sometimes we'll get a little competitive over the business, but they do go to all the hotels in Ann Arbor, our restaurants, our gas stations, our caterers. The list goes on and on. It's endless. What an impact these venues have on all of our businesses. And we all want to support local, right? Always, because it's the small business owners that are suffering. And we need it, and it's very special. And I'm proud to be a part of it. Thank you. Thank you for all of this. Thanks, Nancy.
Hello, my name is Dominic Preya. I'm here representing Tiffany's Market, 4845 Ann Arbor Center Road in Lodi Township. We started to partner up with both venues roughly a decade ago. And everybody speaks about the benefits of venue, but Kelly's also held us to a strict regimen of processes. So when we first approached them, she was very stern with us and said, you know, this is how we do business. You can help us if you'd like, and we say yes. So any ordinances that come in, no parking beside the road, open and close the gates as you come and as you go. Anything that comes up, she tells us immediately, and we do it. So she's extremely on top of her business. And as independent businesses, we have to support each other. We're a 10,000 square foot market, like I said, in Lodi Township. And we're impacted drastically by the growth of the area and the chain stores and the influx of things like Total Wine open in the area. Everything major chain takes away from independence. For example, our beverage business is down 40% since Total Wine came and opened. We just had the senior center come to us last week and ask us for a charitable donation, which we've done over the years, but she said they also truck their entire community to Total Wine to do their purchasing, and Total Wine denied any charitable donations. So with the influx of all these major businesses, they don't partake in the community, they just show up to take from the community. So businesses like this, we partner with each other. When I show up there on a Friday or Saturday, there's not just myself and my partner, we have about 4 employees that work for us that help coordinate these. When we show up at the venue, there's roughly 50 caterers, there's florists, there's A1 rental delivering items. So you look at all the people that it employs in this area that bring money into this area that are more than happy to follow any guidelines they tell us to based on what you guys are putting them under. And it brings a lot to the community, you know, as far as working together. And then my employees want to live in the area. They don't want to commute 40 minutes, 30 minutes. So they're not just working in the area, they're living in the area. They're putting back to the area. So it's a whole community that we're working together here. And as independent businesses disappear, there's almost no stopping process. So people might think, oh, it's just one independent business, but it's really not just one. One employs people from another, they employ people from another. That really builds the entire community. So I'm honored to work with them. When they put us by any restrictions or guidelines, we just say yes. So there's no BS at the venue. It's do it, that's the processes, and we abide by it. So we're more than happy to work with them. And like I said, any restrictions they might be under, we're happy to take into account and just do it. And it would be a shame to see them disappear because we don't have the availability to work with a lot of other venues in the area. So as a thriving market, we're very happy and proud to work with them.
You're here.
Hello, my name is Doug Schuck, SCHOCH, and I heard my business's name brought up, so I thought it was a good idea for me to step up here. But my wife and I own A1 Rental in Ann Arbor, and we're here to speak on behalf of the positive impact that Kelly and Ed's business have done to us. I mean, we're grateful for their business. We, in addition to, working with the venues, privately, we also work with all of the caterers that are showing up and doing their business there as well. So we appreciate Misty Farms, Misty Valley. It'd be a travesty if anything would happen to them. Kelly and Ed are good people. And just like the last gentleman said, I mean, they always make us aware of any changes that are going on, the rules that, we have to abide by when we're delivering our products there. So there's always a lot of transparency that goes on, that they're not trying to hide anything from anybody. So we appreciate Kelly and Ed and, hope that nothing happens to their business. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eve Aronoff Fernandez, and I'm the chef owner of Frida Batidos. We have a restaurant downtown in Ann Arbor and in Detroit, and we've worked with Fruiting Farms and with Kelly and Ed for since just after they opened. And through that time, working together has helped our business and our catering business really grow. I don't even know what the multiple, but just immensely. And also that has allowed us to be part of some of the most special times in people's lives. So, it's just meant a lot to us. And it's also been a really meaningful experience for us working with people that we're on the same wavelength with, because Kelly and Ed both just do everything very personally. When Ed talks to us about guests that are interested in us catering, you can see his eyes light up, and he knows their personal background. He knows the food they grew up with, and he knows what they're interested in. And with Kelly, we've had just as personal communication. We had a little rough start at the beginning. We were kind of just getting on our feet catering. And, the times we clogged the sink or left something or took something from A1, sorry. But she was just always so straightforward with us. And I remember, the guests were happy, we were happy, but we were having these rough patches, and we just all got together and sat down, and I can remember the meeting really well. And she was just so straightforward and worked through, that kind of situation that could have been a conflict, the way you would want, and hope for ideal communication. And that's the experience we've had with them for over so many years. And for me, just the way they run their business, when you, as other people said, when you drive by, it's just one of the rare places that just doesn't look or feel like every other place. You kind of just do a double take, and you just know something's very special about it. And I think it just comes from the very personal way they work, and from the community, within the farms, within with their staff, the way we work hand in hand with their staff. So, I have a lot of letters from guests, that, talk about maybe the food and the service, but also the space and the environment that Kelly and Ed have created. So, I could have brought a big stack of letters from people who have shared some of their most special times in their lives, at the farm. I just want to share my experience. Thank you. Thank you.
Number one caterer. Is there anyone else present in the hall who would like to speak?
Hi, my name is John Malone, Malone, and I'm here to talk about the Krull Gravel Pit. And we live at 3254 Chamberlain Circle, and we're across the street from Hometown Village in the Uplands. Superior Asphalt supposedly has just leased this from Crawl Gravel Pit. And we've lived there 8 years, my wife and myself, but the past 4 or 5 weeks, I'm guessing, Superior has been starting at 6 in the morning and going till 6:30 at night. And the sounds are just unbelievable. We've called the sheriff. He sat out in front of our houses and listened to it. I don't know what he did after that. But everybody in our neighborhood is complaining about this. And actually in the uplands, they are too, in hometown village. It is so deafening. Well, I was in the service in Vietnam. At prisoner of war camps, when they capture people and stuff, to torture them, this is what it felt like. It's just unbelievable. The sounds. You can hear it all through your house from 6 in the morning till 6:30 at night. I don't know what else to do other than, file a lawsuit. We've been thinking about contacting the Attorney General, the state of Michigan, and, see what our options are, but hopefully something can be done here because we've been there 8 years and ever since Superior took this over, and I think it's only been the last few months, they're leasing it from Kroll. It's absolutely horrible. So I don't know what you people are gonna do about it or anything, but, you've got, in our subdivision, we've got 52 people that are really, quite upset about this. So,
Thanks for letting us know.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for letting us know.
Hello, my name is Marilyn Green with no E on the end. I get asked that every day. I'm here, as John is, to talk about the noise in the Walnut View subdivision, which is next to the Walnut Glen subdivision and the Uplands. In the last few months, we have been tortured. And when I say tortured, I mean it. 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. You can't get away from the pound, 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 pound. It's repetitive, it's constant. You can't escape it. You can't turn your television on and get away from it. You can't sit on your deck. You can't enjoy your porch. And I would refer you to the noise ordinance that is in effect for this township. It says any person who creates, causes, allows, suffers, or permits the existence of nuisance shall be guilty of a municipal civil infraction. I think I'm going to move to Misty Farm. Honestly, the lady who just recently bought a home in our subdivision said, I never would have bought here. It's unbearable. We have a woman in our subdivision who is on hospice. This is an aging community. We have one child out of 52 condos. We are all old. That's not going to be the last person on hospice in our community. This cannot be allowed to continue. We have the retired chair of the psychiatric department at the University of Michigan in our subdivision. And she said that this is a mental health issue. It's a violation. And so if we don't get some recourse from that company, we are going to go to the health department and we are going to keep climbing the ladder because this is no way to live. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark Rubin, R-U-B-I-N. I live at 5102 Burkdale Drive in the Polo Fields. I've lived in Scio Township since 1977. I'm a business owner, and I'm also friends with Ed and Kelly Frudig, two of the best people I've ever met in my life. I'm a real estate agent. I've met a lot of people in Scio Township. Ed is a two-time letter winner from the University of Michigan. I also work out with Ed at the Blue Lion on Thursdays, and he kicks my butt. but we do it together. As a taxpayer in Scio Township, I'm really saddened that this is even taking place. That people can harass people and threaten supposedly their business that they have worked so hard to create and keep and really make so many memories for so many people that a couple of people can really threaten their well-being. And they've been harassed for a long time. And I think this is a wonderful tribute to who they are and the business that they own. And I hope that the board listens, because this shouldn't happen. These are good people. They run a good business. They help a lot of people.
Thank you.
Anyone else present in the hall who would like to speak?
My name is Mike Marquardt. I am the owner of property 4488 Jackson Road. I guess the quickest way to get to, so you can understand where I'm coming from. As to what you're seeing tonight, I'm hopefully trying to head that off so that we don't have these noise issues. I submitted a piece of paper to everyone. Did they get that about my property adjoining the Lithia Group? I dropped it off to Mr. Hathaway a while ago.
I did not distribute it to everybody. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I did alert people that to your concerns though.
Okay, well, I guess,
On West Delhi.
yeah, I guess it would help to shorten my time if you had it back. I guess I can go through it if you wish.
And I may get it right here. Let's see.
We'll get a copy, but why don't you go ahead and continue? I have paused it in the interim.
Okay, I guess to speed things up as my process is, to give you a little background where I came from. My property is on Jackson Road. I bought it in the mid-90s. In 1998, I decided to develop it. Jackson Road was a one-lane road. Went to develop it. I went to all the board meetings. It was zoned multifamily tenant. I had to go through the rezoning. It was in the master plan as office. Went through, developed my site plan. In the development, I had multiple board meetings and they were looking at my plan saying, well, you can't do this because I have houses around me. So what I had to do is provide extra fencing. I fenced my entire property in to border the neighbors. I had extra trees I had to put in. I had lighting requirements to keep from shining. Fast forward now, looking at when I developed it, I had the building set one way. I have a Jackson Road address. Mr. Pebbles came to me and said, well, how about you turning your building? So it was less operative. Now it didn't face Jackson Road, it faced West Delhi. I now entered off of West Delhi. Okay, if that's what the township wants, I'll do it. Fast forward, the Lithia Group then petitioned to abandon the road that I have access on. Okay, it was recommended to me that I seek counsel on this. I tried dealing with Lithia for 2 or 3 months, just as a neighbor saying, you know, can we work this out? Didn't come to fruition. Come to find out, they're putting a trucking lane right next to my office building. That's where the trucks are coming in. So in zoning, I never appealed any of their process in putting this in or going through with changing their to a PUD, which is a zoning change. It looks like they have a piece of property that is so large, they can put the trucking lane on the power line side of their property. It'd be the same, they're putting a lot of money into these roads, redoing the roads. I don't understand why they're putting it right next to a zoning office due to commercial. It can go on the other side next to a power line, it would affect nobody. Fast forward to my community that I live in Washtenaw County. I live in Salem Township. They have a trucking lane there. The trucks are diverted around the township because of zoning issues. They have other ways to get in. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you. Sorry for not distributing your letter. I overlooked that request.
Okay, well, it describes the issues.
We'll
That's where I'm
We'll
coming from.
discuss it. Thank you.
My name is Tim Hill.
I am the security for Misty Farms and the Valley. I'm also the director of security for Holiday Inn Express, which I've been doing since 2015. There's a couple of things that I want to address specifically with this board. I don't know you, you don't know me, other than I send the emails with the report, the decimal readings on the property, which I might add is what was requested from the board, that this is to be done on a weekly basis, and I do that. So there's a couple of things that I want to address. One is integrity. Second is credibility. So the individuals that are making these accusations against Ed and Kelly, my question is, where are they at? That's number one. They make a lot of noise. They say a lot of things that I might add is not true. They're talking, but there's not proof. For me, I can give you proof. I know what the decimal readings are. I take them each week, so I know what they are. The individuals that are coming and making the complaints to this township about what's happening in Scio Township, they're not here, or are they here? I don't see them. So anyway, I will tell you this, I would be very concerned when you have someone who comes to your board meeting who has 3 minutes to speak, and they stand up and they leave the meeting and they're making threats towards you. And whether or not you've seen it, I don't know, but I watched it on video. So when there's a person who is sitting at that table who is telling you that you are to listen to what he has to say, and if you don't listen, there's going to be hell to pay. As he also stated, whoever buys the new property, which would be Misty Farms, he's going to make their life a living hell. This is what the person who sat at that table told you. You listened to him, you heard him. I don't understand why you continue to keep listening to him. That's one. So if we're going to talk about integrity, then you need to put up or shut up. Okay, plain and simple. Integrity and credibility go hand in hand. So these individuals that are speaking, they're not here. They don't have proof. I have proof. I do it every week. So if you want the report, I'll give it to you. I do know Mr. Hathaway because I've sent him the emails. Okay, we don't have anything to hide. You can't fabricate it. Oh, one other thing I might want to add. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does the township have a decimal reader?
Actually, our planning consultant has a decimal reader. We haven't deployed it, I don't think.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, the reason why I'm asking is if you have a decimal reader, that would be good because you would have the same access that I have. But I've also put an invite out for any of these folks from this board. If you'd like to come out to the property, I'm security there, I will give you a ride around. I will show you what the decimal readings are. I know it's over 3 minutes, but I just gotta say this one thing. Recently, I was threatened by one of the individuals that sat at that table that was speaking, who got in my face recently about his displeasure of what was going on at Misty Farms in the Valley. Uncalled for. And then he called the sheriff department. Uncalled for. What I'm asking you as a board, stop listening to the foolishness. If you want to know the truth, come to Misty Farms of the Valley. See it for yourself.
Thank you.
Okay?
And listen to the neighbors. Yeah. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I'm gonna take a little different bent and talk about something completely different. So a couple of quick asks and requests. First off, I'd like to thank Fran Zuma and Christy for helping us out over the last couple of days. Fran was able to turn around something today, even with how busy she is in the middle of the last push for taxes. So that was awesome. And Christy, thank you for helping us get set up at the DDA meeting the other day and get the meeting recorded. That was really helpful as well. I do have a big ask in the future. If we could please stop putting new stuff in the packet the day of the meeting. It makes it really hard to keep track of what was there before and what was added like in the last 8 hours. And the packet ballooned out quite extensively. Couple of things of note that I did find in the GL expense report, I did get a chance to ask because that was also added in the last couple of days. We did pay another, it appears to be another credit card late fee of $39. Once again, it's not the amount that matters so much as the fact that we just didn't pay our credit card bill on time. Again, for everyone that didn't know, we did that once before about 6 months ago. And I did bring it up to the board. The other thing that sort of jumped out at me, just from a standpoint last night, I did watch the planning commission meeting. Trustee Reiser, one of the things that was brought up about the developer who had failed to place their electric vehicle chargers, and there was a discussion. I know Doug wasn't there. I don't know legally, you know, you have your township attorney, you certainly can ask. I do know from a development standpoint, since I did just build a building, you can certainly request a construction escrow or completion bond for a part of a project. It's common in PUD development agreements. I don't know, I guess since they had to come back to you, you guys, you could request anything of them, right? To a point. But that was just another piece that I know last night was discussed, but Doug wasn't there to help out with. But yeah, if we could just focus on those things, and Manager Parker, I look forward to hearing who our new utilities director is. I had the opportunity to talk to the utilities department the other day. They really do need help and someone permanent. And I look forward to our code enforcement officer interviews here the next couple of weeks and hearing hopefully from the board either later this month or early next month. I think the code enforcement official would certainly help prove out if there's any issues with both noise as well as any of the other concerns that some people have raised over the last couple of months. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Ryan.
Good evening. My name is Alan Urbano from representing Low Density Parkwood. And I'm here to revisit the subject of elevation for this particular development. This is prior presented to the DOT in January of this year. Our group feels that the proposed elevation difference between Arbus Grove and Parkwood is both size significant and underreported to Parkwood co-owners. Arbus Grove is designed to be 7.2 feet above Parkwood. I'm going to give you 3 technical points related. First, Parkwood is a very low-lying community, sloping to the east away from Z Grove. The proposed AG community is designed almost level with Z, sloping to the east, a maximum of 3.6 feet. That near level slope is achieved following a clear cut of the trees and a large install of fill dirt. That dirt would virtually surround the northeast wetland held back by a 7-foot retaining wall. Point number 2. In contrast, our adjacent Parkwood community has a dramatic downward slope of 11 feet, measured by the elevation difference between Z Road and the manhole cover elevation at Park Grove and Wood Grove streets. Item 3, the average elevation grade for all of AG is 899.5. The average elevation of Parkwood is 892.3, as represented by the 6 manhole covers on Park Grove and Wood Grove. That's a difference of 7.2 feet. The average amount AG would rise above the Parkwood community. Recognizing that 7.2 height is ground level, their buildings would virtually tower above us. Our goal is to present this complicated subject in an understandable way. A 3-page PDF file was in your August 15th meeting packet. And of note, every elevation value I cited tonight and in that document comes from the developer's site plan drawings of record, which is August 1st of this year. And lastly, 2 weeks ago, I'm here also to support my fellow resident, Bill Doty, who was here speaking, like I said, 2 weeks ago. He asked about the resolution to consider item 21 to go back to the planning commission based on numerous changes. There were, back in March of last year, there were 17 drawings associated with this project. There are now 44 drawings with this site plan. Back in October of last year, the resolution was passed unanimously. It was 11 months ago. And one of our group members asked me recently about DOT resolutions in general, are there high and low levels, as in, will ours ever be addressed? So we're basically wondering if that resolution will ever be addressed, and we would ultimately like an answer. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alan.
Is there anyone else present who would like to speak?
It's empty. Hi, my name is Lydia Frudig. I am Ed and Kelly's daughter, and I grew up on 8040 Scio Church Road. And I would just kind of like to speak to the fact that my parents are truly some of the hardest working people I've ever known in my entire life. They've taught all of us kids how to be really hard workers and have our own businesses. And my mom has such a vision for creating beautiful places, and she's made our home just this like insane, beautiful place to grow up on. And it truly is like one of the best, has been the best experience of my life and childhood. And I just wanted to say that, and this has been like a really upsetting time for my parents, because just all the things that have happened last weekend. I was working a wedding, and Jamie walked down the street and had a huge banner saying the party is over, no more party barns. And he, it was just really, I was parking cars the whole time, and it was actually kind of made me feel very uncomfortable standing next to the road and just keep cars in and stuff and showing him where to park. And he was just staring at us the whole time and staring me down, and it just felt really uncomfortable. So yeah, I just wanted to come up here and say that this has been tough for them. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present who would like to speak during public comment?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You have a decibel reader. Could we use it in our neighborhood?
It belongs to the planning consulting firm. I don't know what their guidelines are for.
You can use one of ours. I got two, so reach out to me.
But I did talk with, because our planning consulting firm also is involved in enforcement currently, or in the process of, and we may have this more about this when the township manager speaks later, but at this time, we're sort of in transition, but they do, I think, have a decibel reader, and I have asked if they can look into the complaints that we've started to receive about the noise from the gravel operation. So I'll make sure to speak with them about the decibel reader and seeing if we can deploy that.
If I may ask you a follow-up, what's gonna become of this, what we talked about, as far as this gravel pit?
Well, I can't predict what will
I
happen.
mean, will you do anything, or are you gonna just sit on it for?
No. We're trying to figure out where, as I said, we're in a transition in terms of our enforcement staffing, and we've been sort of grappling with that, and the township manager may have more to report about that later in the meeting, but we want to respond to every complaint that we get, and we try to, the township does, and so we won't just ignore what you've said tonight.
Yes, have you made a formal written complaint?
No, written,
I have.
we've been here and talked
I
to you.
sent it to somebody on staff here. She gave me her, okay, Carolyn back there.
I guess,
Good.
I want to ask that
Thank
you kind of memorialize what you've said, the experiences that you've had, the frequency of it, what time it starts, what time it stops, how it impacts you, and then send that to us so that our new ordinance officer or our current planner and zoning people can do an investigation and then proceed.
You know, I hate to, you know, throw something negative on there, but my friend here, Dane, and myself, we live very close together. We were in here, I don't know, 2 months ago with the new disposal company that we've got on Thursdays. There's glass all the time, crushed glass in front of literally everybody's driveway after they pick up our recycling. We went around and swept up all the glass, brought it in here, talked to somebody actually in this room, and, you know, put our names down, you know, never heard anything from you folks. Called the sanitation company, other people, you know, now all of a sudden, instead of sweeping this up in front of everybody's driveway, we don't do it anymore, except our own. But, you know, it's things like that. I mean, you come over here and do things and nothing happens. I mean.
Let's move forward.
Yeah, can I add
Public
something?
comment.
Sure.
Put your hand up first.
Okay.
And I did. I'd like to get your contact information. I live in the uplands.
Okay.
I've had numerous complaints about the pounding. I called, it was FENDT Builder Supply this morning and talked to them. And I was told that the pounding is from the process of making bricks. They have to pour the solution in and then they have to pound it. And she told me they've been doing this for over 20 years.
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, and I'm not saying, I'm just telling you what they told me.
We bought our place 8 years ago and it's just.
I think it's worse
2 or 3
too.
months.
Yeah, I think it's worse too. But I'm just saying, other people are complaining. You are not alone.
One idea that was, I'm sorry, y'all.
Go ahead.
We can't get
One
up.
idea
we're
that
going- we're
was
going-
floated was that they should put up a cement sound wall or something like you see along the freeways where they separate the freeway noise from. I'm all about business. I think business is a wonderful thing, but the nuisance and the sound is in your ordinance and there should be some remediation.
What I'd like to suggest, it sounds like there's multiple issues affecting this particular neighborhood. I'm aware of the broken glass issue as well. I did some work on that. I'm sorry we didn't get back to you about it. But why don't we make a plan to meet? If you wanna make an appointment, we can meet in person or I can talk with you on the phone. But why don't we just plan to have further conversation about this outside of public comment?
Thank you.
I'd like to make one comment too.
Okay.
Just one comment to the Fruitig group. Just so everybody in the board is aware, I personally went out on Monday and my first concern was, all other things aside, is this establishment safe from a fire perspective? Does it meet all the standard requirements? So Brandon was kind enough to go out there and meet with me. He did a walkthrough. I believe the report was 100% thumbs up. I've asked him to summarize that though and ceremonialize that in a document. I've asked and I want to make it very clear. We're you know, we have to hear all sides, but I'm very data driven. I think I can speak for the rest of the board. It's whatever's the data, you know, makes all decisions. These are to me very binary. There's noise or there's not noise. Obviously you have neighbors that say there's not. We have a few neighbors that say there is. If we have reports from your security person that says they're not, again, there's hard data. We've heard innuendo that, hey, this is way over 250 users. I've asked the Frutigs to say, can you supply us with the information that states how many people have attended every venue? Is there a way for us to measure that, to determine whether that's, you know, fact or not? So to me, when I hear things, I consider them all conjecture. I like to look at data, and then data just drives, is there an ordinance violation? Is there not? If there is, you pay the fine. If there's not, we go all our merry way. So again, I think the Frutigs are compiling some data for us to consider and review and to make sure that data is unbiased and factual. So I just wanted to put that in context of all parties, that we, the board, are neutral. We have to listen to all sides and just drive decisions based on actual factual data.
He's gonna come back and do more thorough, like Brandon is, the fire chief.
I think he said he was satisfied, Brandon said he was satisfied with what he saw in the red report.
Okay, this isn't really a dialogue,
Yeah.
and we're not actually finished, just because we've heard from everybody present physically. We now have to turn to those who are participating remotely. So, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Will. First up is Kevin Johnson, followed by Jonathan Greenberg. Go ahead, Kevin.
My name's Kevin Jackson.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
That's okay. I'm a resident of the Parkwood condominiums, and I'm speaking on SP 21021, better known as the Arbus Grove. I'm also here in support of Alan Urbano. It was very encouraging to just hear the board members say that the board is neutral and that they look at data. And you know that the L group has been coming to the board meetings for over 18 months, speaking on the density of our growth. We are not.
Kevin, hold on. Time out. Yeah, we have. Okay.
So is it okay? Is it okay now? I can speak?
1 second, please.
So that quote, Kevin, is coming from you.
From me?
Do you have
Okay.
another speaker on?
Yes, it is coming from you, right?
I know.
Yeah.
From here. Kevin, how, can you speak now, please? Okay. Yeah, the sound, the echo is coming from Kevin somehow. So
It's coming from inside the house.
Kevin, could we give you a moment to try to troubleshoot on your end? Because I'm pretty sure it is on your end instead of ours. Could we hear from 2 more people and then come back to you? I'm asking while you're on mute. That's terrible. Kevin, we're gonna go to 2 more people and then come back to you.
I'll even restart the clock for.
So where would?
We'll come back to you, Kevin.
Okay.
Okay, next up is Jonathan Greenberg, followed by JH. Jonathan, go ahead, please.
Hello. How are you?
Very funny.
I'm sorry. Okay, so hello. Hi, guys. I'm impressed from what I heard tonight. The fruit eggs are the next coming and will save us all. I also know a snow job when I listen to it. So many people here tonight really don't have a clue as to what the issue is or just didn't care to become informed because it's not about the quality of the people or the venue, it's the rules. And despite what his vendors, employees, customers, gym partners, childhood friends, church members, children have to say, oh man, I got a bad.
No, it's Kevin. Keep going, Jonathan. Kevin, please keep yourself on mute.
Okay.
Have you been able to hear anything yet? I'm still hearing a big echo.
Okay, Kevin's on mute now. And so is Jonathan.
1, 2. Okay, now I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Can I start over?
No.
No. But I did stop the clock, so you can restart.
All right. But despite, I don't have that much to say, I'm just kidding. But despite what his vendors, employees, customers, gym partners, childhood friends, and church members may have to say, oh, and his daughter, many of these folks don't even live in Scio Township. They all do owe him or want something from him, but they all need to understand that there's only one set of rules. And until he started taking shots at Ann, who I don't know him, I don't know Ann. I didn't know what kind of person he is, but he showed his true colors when he started attacking Ann. It shows also that he knows he has a weak hand. And why is that? Well, rules were violated 10 years ago or 12 years ago or whatever by Doug Luan. Not surprising when he approved this violation of our ordinances. And I know how effective enforcement is with Doug and Will, if Doug and Will don't like you, because it took 2 months for them to handle a simple garbage complaint. It was the same games that they've been playing for the fruit eggs for years. And to those of you who condescendingly point fingers, even though you admit you don't know what you're talking about, kind of shame on you for speaking up when you have nothing of value to say. There was a disgusting display of out-of-towners and people who want something from this guy, and our ordinances are not being enforced. They have not, and people like Doug Luan allowed this to happen for years. If you're connected around here, you get stuff around here. But the rules are the rules, and it's time to end this farce. Mark, you want some data? Look at the rules. Whether they're nice or loud or whatever, doesn't really matter. This is not a qualified use of this land. It hasn't been. And whatever deal they cut with Doug a bunch of years ago is required to be reviewed now. And so that's what you guys have to do. And when you review it, you have to review it by the rules. And if you don't, then you're not doing your duty. And it's really frustrating to sit here and listen to people from don't even live here attack Ann, childhood friends, my ass. Just disgusting display tonight, people. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
I think Kevin Jackson.
Yeah, let's-
Do you want to try
Wanna
again?
try again?
Kevin?
We want to hear from you, Kevin, no matter how echoey you are. So let's just all unmute and listen carefully.
Okay, am I echoing or is it much better? Can you hear me?
Much better, yes,
Okay.
it's a bit
All right.
better.
It's much better. Thank you.
Bit better.
And thank you for giving me the chance to come back after all of that rude noise. But again, I appreciate the board being neutral and considering the facts. You know that the low-density group from Parkwood is not opposed to development of the Arbors Grove property that's currently called Arbors Grove next to us, but it's not in the character of the community. It doesn't fit the density of the rest of the surrounding area. It was very nice to hear the community support for the Misty property and saying how beautiful it is and how when people visit the area, they just are flabbergasted by our area. They love it. And so if a reasonable development was proposed for next door, then it would keep with the beautifulness of our community. So it's going to boil down to legalities. And as Alan pointed out, there was initially 14 drawings that have now grown to a significantly more amount of drawings. And I'm saying that if there's any variances or exceptions to the law that they are asking for you to vote this proposed development down at the 36 units. When they come back with a more reasonable density for the area that meets all of the laws without any variances or exceptions, then let's start digging. I'll be over there taking a picture of them breaking the ground. But let's keep the density where density needs to be. Downtown Ann Arbor, around University of Michigan. There's all types of that type of building going on. But to shove 36 units onto less than 4 acres to build on is not keeping in the character of the community and keeping that calm corridor between Liberty and Park Road calm until you hit downtown Scio. Thank you for giving me this time.
Thank you, Kevin.
Next up is JH. Reading JH, go ahead.
Hi, this is actually Jan Culbertson. I realized I did a webinar today and I didn't, I was using Washtenaw Contractors Association. So I am not Jody, I am Jan. So I'm here to discuss briefly the development agreement for suburban Lithia. I was reviewing it just to look at the sort of the carbon neutrality language after our planning commission meeting last night, and did come to the issue that the developer shall contribute $21,000 to the township tree fund in lieu of strict compliance with section 346 of the township zoning ordinance. The tree fund contribution as calculated by Carlisle Wortman is $171,000. And I must say that I am disheartened that the agreement then continues to say that although this is not considered a community benefit under the following section, in practice, what we're doing is opening up the ordinance around our tree replacements to negotiation. And I want to ask the Planning Commission to consider this carefully, because the tree ordinance replacement has a very specific purpose. And there's an intent in the ordinance that talks about it's to prevent unregulated and in many cases unnecessary removal of trees and related natural resources. The protection of trees, woodlands, and woodland resources promote the preservation of important physical, aesthetic, recreational, and economic assets for both present and, more importantly, future generations. Specifically, the Planning Commission just passed last evening the climate action plan that will be coming before the board. And it takes an average of 15 years for a tree to start sequestering carbon. So if we do not replace these trees with multiple smaller trees, we are actually adding to our emissions for decades. And that price is not reflected in this sort of negotiation. So I am asking that the board look at this development agreement and restore the $171 to the tree replacement fund. And I want to also acknowledge that we do have a fund that hasn't been used. However, a policy is being created, and that policy is being created with data to help us improve the effectiveness of where and what is planted. And I commit to having that policy ready for your approval in time for implementation for spring planting. Then that's my major issue. And just a little fact, oak trees are considered sort of the kings or the queens of diversity. They support 2,300 species.
Jan, you're at time.
Okay.
Past
And
time, sorry.
one other thing, just quickly, 8II, the buildings will be all electric, powered with green energy purchased off the grid. The suggested change is the buildings will be all electric and powered with on-site or off-site renewable energy. Thank you.
Could you please state that phrase one more time?
Sure. 8II.
Yep.
It currently says the buildings will be all electric, powered with green energy purchased off the grid. I would like to suggest a change, and this allows a little more flexibility because they might want to add more on-site. The buildings will be all electric and powered with on-site or off-site renewable energy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak? Paula Gloverson. Go ahead, Paula.
Yeah, I wanted to speak tonight about the Frutigs and the party barn issue. And it all boils down to, it doesn't even matter what the decibels are. Do they have the right to use this with the conditional, allowances that were made? Are they actually farming? And you're gonna run into that with the winery that doesn't have any vines yet. So I'd just like to say that this didn't even need to happen if your planner had actually not favored people in allowing this conditional no and without enforcing it over the last 12 years. Anyway, thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Paula.
Rob Pattinson, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Rob Pattinson, Scio Township resident. Trustee Brazeau, you made a very good email several weeks ago about the Lithia proposal and the public benefit measurement of that proposal. And I read through the agenda packet with their their latest proposal. And I noticed that several of the issues raised about mixed use, about 500,000 for the fire department, they're offering 300,000. There's no language about mixed use. There's no language about guaranteeing resolution of the abandoned buildings. So please, and then in their public benefit, they list 10 things in their public benefit, and several of them, in my opinion, are rather irrelevant. But both you and Trustee Reiser made some very good points in those emails about the public benefit of PUDs. And I encourage all of you tonight, pay special attention to that and notice what's missing from the proposal that they were concerned about. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob.
If we're all done with remote,
I don't
can
see
we
anyone
have
else remotely with their hand
Kathleen?
raised.
I missed you earlier, but please go ahead.
I think you all can hear me. I don't think I need to use the microphone. Kathleen Brandt, Scio resident. People might wonder, why do I put so much time into Scio Township? The answer is because I hate corruption and I care deeply about our residents and our neighbors. The earlier comments about Ann Streeter and Jamie Wingler seem to be defamation. I think those folks need to retract some of those things. They're getting awfully close, if not across the line, to defamation to those individuals. The lack of enforcement of this conditional use is causing a great liability to Scio Township. It's about what's in the conditional use. And we need to talk about the financials. Those financials, I did analysis, all available from public sources. That is hard data that will hold up in a court of law. I think Scio Township is flirting with liability on this issue, not necessarily from the Fruitings. The Fruitings do not have a leg to stand on for that part of the conditional use. The liability should rightfully be on Carlisle Workman for negligence in enforcing the conditional use. They have never enforced the conditional use for the financials. Scio Township relied on their expertise. They are continue to be our enforcement officials. And today they have done nothing for this aspect of the conditional use. That is completely negligent on their part. I would encourage Scio Township to place the negligence where it belongs. If not, Scio Township will be financially harmed by lawsuits. I don't want that to happen, but I want the conditional use to be enforced, and I will support that effort. Thank you very much.
Kathleen.
Thank you. With that, let's move on. We have approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes. These are for the meeting of August 15th. No, sorry,
August 29th.
August 29th. The cover's a little missing. August 29th. Are there any corrections to the minutes, the draft minutes as proposed? Seeing none, is someone prepared to move approval of the draft minutes? Moved by Brazeau, support by Noel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Minutes of August 29th are approved. That brings us to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda has, I believe, just one item on it. There was a little confusion at the end, but it's just the payment of the bills.
And I just want to comment, I will look into the cause for the late fee and report back.
Okay, thank you. Is someone prepared to move the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Reiser, support by Brazeau. This is payments, so we'll have to have a roll call.
Okay, and tonight we're starting with Brazeau. Brazeau?
Yes.
Carrie? Absent? Noel?
Yes.
Reiser?
Yes.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Flintoff, yes. Consent agenda adopted.
Thank you. That brings us to reports, and we have quite a few. In addition to mine, I wanted sort of some issues that came up at the DDA meeting that I would like to orally report quickly. There was some discussion about maintenance. This is an issue that the Board of Trustees brought up in terms of the DDA. The DDA has begun a discussion and sort of like information gathering on that. And we're looking at, in particular, the DDA board is looking at the contracts, the existing contracts for maintenance along the boulevard to understand exactly what the costs are, but also looking at what the sort of legal ramifications are and sort of what the administrative responsibility might entail. And so that conversation or that deliberation by the DDA and a more sort of formal response will come after, I believe, our next meeting. The DDA has two proposals, which I don't have formally for the board to consider at this meeting, but I just wanted to report them and then we'll have an opportunity to consider them at a later meeting. One of those proposals is that the tree fund, which we have begun talking about this evening, that funds from the tree fund be used to help pay for the cost of planting of trees by the DDA in the DDA district. So they would like to draw on those, on that fund for that purpose. And so there'll be a more formal proposal for that coming. The DDA also proposes or requests that the township, the board, impose an SAD on the property owners on Dino Drive for the share of the paving or the repaving of Dino Drive not paid for by the DDA. So that's another thing that we'll have on a future agenda, but that's these are items that came from the DDA.
And I'll just know we should have some significant internal discussion about both of those. I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Major, I think that the latter one is fraught.
Yeah, well, there's lots to talk about and the board doesn't have to do what the DDA requests. It's just, these are requests or proposals from the DDA board, which we'll have an opportunity to deliberate on later. You all received from me via email my letter of resignation from the LASA board. And I haven't heard from anyone with questions about that, but I do encourage you, if you have questions, to contact me. I'm happy to discuss that with you if you have questions.
And I can just give a brief update. The LASA board's next meeting is October 2nd. I've talked with a majority of the members and they plan to formally accept that at that time. I hope that this board, maybe at our next meeting, we can talk more about a potential appointment to that and give some information about that.
The other thing I just wanted to share, this is something that Township Manager and I have been working on and plan to bring to the board at the next meeting, and that is a new agreement, a renewal of the agreement with the Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority. Their fiscal year starts in October, and so it's still timely if we have it at our next meeting. This is an updated version of the service agreement that we've had with the Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority for years. But there'll be more information on that, and we hope to have someone from the Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority here to answer questions at that meeting. And that's my report. Unless there are any questions about either any of those or my written report that's in the meeting packet. Are there any other additions, comments about reports?
Yeah, just a couple. Thank you to whomever added the sheriff's report. I just want to make a request and a reminder. We've discussed at this table before a request not to include the full list of incidents for two reasons. It blows up our packet. It's very, very long.
But also, though it's public, I don't know that we need to publish every address where there's a call. But instead just rely on the summary information. So it's an ongoing request.
Those aren't addresses. If you look, it's just like, block. We don't know who it is. It's just.
Certainly. I think that there may be enough there that it could be identifiable. I don't think it adds much to our discussion when the summary is already rolled up, but it's preference.
You can always
certainly.
find it on the Sun-Time News.
I know. I also wanted to say, a lot of our committees, I think PC, and John, thanks for noting that, LPC, is taking a look at our committee terms. We have several coming up at the end of 2023. So I'll put together a schedule and send out reminders. As you know, if you always want to know somebody's term or what seats they fill, we have a committee page on the website for each committee of the board. And that's where Mary and I keep the rosters up to date. Regarding the FYE 23 audit, moving along inside Plant Moran, they've had partner review, they're doing financial review. They have had, and Manager Parker had a good suggestion to our auditor that we try to have the presentation by the auditors prior to submission by September 30th. We certainly aren't required to, but we would want to be able to do that. I know Dave Helisek, the partner at Plant Moran, is not available for our Tuesday, September 26th meeting. And this being our only meeting before that last week of September, I wanted to suggest, I told him I'd certainly be willing to suggest that we call for a special meeting. And it may even be tentative, Joyce, I'm thinking out loud here, but it may even be tentative for that last week of September, but wanted to ask if we all wouldn't be willing to call for a special meeting when the most members are available that last week of September to hear from the presentation from our auditors about our FYE 23 audit. Suggestion/motion. And Joyce, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think you covered it. I just think it's important to hear from them before it's submitted to the state.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Is there, my understanding from prior years is that it doesn't really matter whether the board hears before or after it's filed, because we're not going to change anything in the audit. It's merely a chance to discuss the audit and any findings that are in it. It's important to have that discussion, but it doesn't really.
It's not required.
Well, it doesn't have to happen before the filing, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Right. It's not required. I just suggested that because I was thinking that the board might want to know what's in the report before it's submitted, but it's certainly not required.
Right. But a very good suggestion and a normal practice.
Yeah, it seems to make sense.
Yeah.
I think it should be before. How much time is it gonna take?
So
About
Half an hour to an hour, maybe.
hour, I'd say, if they did a full presentation, we've even suggested to them that even if they do a brief presentation, my motion tonight would be to call a special meeting of the board the week of September 25th on a date and time to be determined when the most members of the board can be present for the purpose of hearing a presentation by our auditors on FYE 23 audit, period.
Is that Tuesday available? Or I mean,
No, that's why I'm making this motion.
because we're already meeting?
No, because the auditor is not available. Dave Helisek is not available.
So some other time the week of the regular meeting.
So
we would have a special.
determined, it sounds like a little bit, right?
Yeah, TBD, but that week for a specific purpose, so it would be as short as needed.
So assuming that we can get quorum, we would have a special meeting.
Yeah, so that's, of course, if we don't get quorum, we won't hold a meeting, but my motion stands.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? So just to clarify, the township manager you would try to find a date that would work for everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we figured it
Most
out.
everyone doing it.
Yeah, as
Well,
many-
I'm just
yeah.
trying to figure out the logistics of what it is that we're approving here. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Good luck.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Are there further comments or additional reports?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'll go last. I have the Panera EV thing.
Oh, trustee Carey, please, you had your
I
hand up
will.
first.
Okay, the road advisory committee, we met this last week. I think it was, yeah. So we have a list, we have about 4 things that are important that we are working on. One of them is the road plan and funding for next year, and however that will look. So what has come up for us in our resolution, and we're trying to cover, like, if we're planning for road funding, what does that entail? Culverts, sidewalks, and whatnot. And we had a couple of emails from residents about sidewalks over on Scio Church Road connecting into, what is it, Oak Valley. So I forwarded that to the planning commission and the PPP, and it got bounced back to us. So Scio, us, the board, we need to figure out some planning, and there's these loose ends that just kind of get ping ponged around. I want residents to be heard. I know, Will, that you responded to one of them. I don't know if you responded to the other, but who takes care of sidewalks? I'm not saying going out and sidewalking the whole township, but when we have these sidewalk gaps in neighborhoods that previous planning commissions didn't think about, who does that fall under? I mean, we just went through the Scio Ridge uplands and scrambling for 10 years to get that taken care of. And then we have, I know that Dexter Ann Arbor Road and Wagner Road, we've had a few emails in the past couple of years regarding safety issues and walking. They're asking for sidewalks. So where do sidewalks fall?
I would just flag, we're not gonna solve it tonight, but
No,
I do
but-
think this is part of the transportation, planning that we've got to look at, because, don't forget, a year or two ago, we expressly took TAP out of the PPP committee, the Transportation Alternatives Projects, and we flagged for ourselves, we need to figure out where that goes. Certainly with AAATA coming to us in 2 weeks, I'll also want to know about, anticipating for the bus renewal millage. So we've got a lot to talk about there, I agree.
And there's potential expansion of the bus, and we have more developments coming in. I mean, there's questions that need to be answered, so I don't know how we're going to do that, but
I think it's a good thing to raise the issue, and we'll come back with some ways of discussing it together. Trustee Riser, you were next.
With respect to that, the sidewalks and the pathways, and we've got, I've got the Roads Advisory Committee charge, which talks about partnering with TAP and the Planning Commission to integrate sidewalks, pathways, crosswalks, et cetera. And then there's the PPP's charge, which talks about maintaining and updating the trail and the pathway plan, and collaborating with the Township Planning Commission, the RAC, regarding transportation planning. And then the Planning Commission is supposed to do it when they go, so ultimately it's the board with all these other 3 committees kind of working collaboratively and together on it. And the only thing, a couple things with respect to my report for the Planning Commission. These EV chargers are so small that Panera, the developer, just forgot to put them in as they were required to do when they got 4 extra parking spots there. And I'm being a little sarcastic. And so the Planning Commission last night was not happy that the 4 extra spots that they got conditioned on putting in 4 EV chargers were done. And when they went back to DTE and say, hey, we need some more power, blah, 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 they said, oh, we can't do that. You can only have it terminated at the building, and it's already done there. So we're now on to Plan B. And it got tabled or postponed last night for them to come back. And the Planning Commission is very likely going to ask them or work with them that they need something additional now. Instead of going with 4 EV level 2s, then let's talk about some level 3s and whether the amperage or the wattage or whatever, that kind of stuff. So there's going to be some sort of Plan B, and more on that later. And the other thing is,
How they get their CO?
so, because that's probably with respect to the building, because you don't occupy a charging station, you occupy a building.
Yeah, but you still think they'd look at the whole part of the building.
Yeah, how to get past the electrical workers, the inspectors, all of that. The other thing is coming to us at some point will be Curtis Commercial, which is the old Panera. They've been trying to get a tenant. Nobody wants to come there unless they get a drive-through, in a split vote on the planning commission. They denied recommending it to the board because they didn't have a traffic study. They've since gotten a traffic study and implemented some of those things. They've talked to Chief Hood about safety and how to make it safe for pedestrians, and they've added additional bike hoops and outdoor seatings, and they're also going to be pre-installing the conduit for 4 EV chargers, if that's something that there's interested in the future. So look for a Curtis Commercial de Old Panera to come before us. That's just a heads up. That's it. I yield back.
I didn't ask you, Township Manager Parker, but would you like time to make any kind of a report during the time on the agenda?
I know there was a question about the code enforcement officer position, and we've advertised the position. Currently, we have 3 applications. I hope to start the interview process within the next week to 10 days. Right now, I'm kind of focused on the utility director position. So once I get those interviews out of the way, I'll start with the code enforcement officer position.
And would you mind giving an update on the utility director interviews? Because I know those have been really active.
Oh, sure. We have a committee in place, the supervisor, the interim person for utilities. OHM, our consultant, is also involved in the process. And so primarily we're interviewing 6 candidates for the position. We interviewed 4 this week. We'll interview the other 2 next week. And once we get through that process, make a determination as far as whether there's a need for second interviews or if we can take it to the next step and present a recommendation to the board.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So we're getting there.
Yeah, thank you.
And we do have pretty good candidates for the position too.
Unless there are further comments or questions. And let's move on. There's no unfinished business, but our new business, the first item is Suburban Lithia. And I know we have some folks from Suburban Lithia here to represent. So if you would like to come up, you are welcome to do so. What we're gonna do is ask, if we can bring Doug on, we're gonna ask our planner to sort of introduce this agenda item, and then if you are available to answer questions or respond as appropriate, that would be great. If I don't know if you had anything that you prepared to say. Usually at this point, we keep the comments from the applicant to no longer than 5 minutes. It's up to you if you would like, if you'd like to come forward or not. Doug, are you ready to introduce?
Yes, let me fix my camera up here. Okay, good evening, everyone. This is a final PUD, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the process of where we're at, with the project at this point. So PUDs go through a long review process. The process is preliminary PUD in front of the Planning Commission with a public hearing, then goes on to the Township Board for preliminary PUD. After preliminary PUD is granted, it goes back to the Planning Commission for final PUD review. Planning Commission then recommends either approval, denial, or they may postpone it, which actually happened several times at the Planning Commission. And after the Planning Commission's recommendation, in this case, it was a recommendation of approval, it moves on to the Township Board for final approval, along with a public hearing, which you've already held. So it's a rather long, intensive process. We are getting to the end of that process in that there's been 2 public hearings, one at the Planning Commission, one at the Township Board, 4 required meetings, and then other meetings that would have occurred when the project was tabled and postponed by both the Planning Commission and the Township Board. In your packet you should have a memorandum from us dated September 6th that goes over the project. I will let the applicant go into the project in more detail, but it goes over the project, talks about some of the dates, where the project was in front of the Planning Commission and Township Board. Of note, the Planning Commission recommended approval on June 26th of this year with some conditions. Most of those conditions have been addressed in one fashion or another. Also in our review or in your packet should be our full report that went to the Planning Commission back in June. That is numerous pages long, 13, almost 14 pages. You should have OHM's review, a letter from the Road Commission, the proposed development agreement language. Of note on the development agreement language is the section that talks about public benefit. That is found on, excuse me, community benefit, that's in public benefit. It's found on page 4 of the development review, if you are interested in looking at that. And then, yeah, and that's it. So those are the items that you should have in your packet on this item. And if there are any questions, I'm not going to go over our report specifically, and because it's rather lengthy, and but I trust that the township board members were able to review that. And if you have any questions about the process or the project itself that I might be able to answer, I'd be happy to do that. Otherwise, I will turn it back over to the township supervisor.
And is there someone from OHM also?
I do not.
Do
Sally Boss.
Yeah, Sally or Stacy, either one or the other of them. Sally, if you're available and you could. She's being promoted.
She's got promoted.
Congratulations on your promotion.
Everyone. Yeah, I got a promotion here. All right, as Doug mentioned, I'm not gonna go through our letter specifically. We did not have many comments left at this point. You should have a final PUD review dated May 22nd of 2023, and then we also had a road improvement agreement review dated August 23rd, both in your packets. So the only comments we had left were regarding the public benefits, which is just delegating it to the Board of Trustees to negotiate that, as well as the West Del High Road ingress egress easement vacation, which I believe, and the applicant can correct me here, but I believe that was not abandoned. So the only thing there was we've received concerns from residents regarding truck traffic on West Del High, which I don't think it's going to change whether it's public or private, but that we did recommend that signage be installed saying no parking or car storage along the West Del High Road there.
Thank you. When I reached out to OHM today, I had overlooked that, and you guys brought that to my attention. I don't know if anyone else missed that, but the OHM feels that would address the concerns that were raised by Mr. Markart?
Yeah, it's basically no parking for car haulers or car storage. I don't know that we can actually limit trucks going down that road, especially if it's still a public road owned by the road commission, but because it has been used that way, but at least not storing them or unloading there would be beneficial in helping limit the traffic. And they do have room on site to both unload with the car haulers, and they should have plenty of car storage parking spaces.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the applicant team before we turn to questions from the board? All right, okay. Trustee Noel.
Okay, this is a question for Doug. Doug, you stated that most of the conditions have been addressed. Are there any conditions that have not been addressed, in your opinion?
The only outstanding item that has not been addressed is the if you see on page 3 of my letter to the, or our memo to the township board, the only item that wasn't there that has not fully been addressed that only the township board can address is the allowance of a tree fund amount in lieu of actual planting of trees that will be removed as a part of the project. That's at the bottom of page 3 of our report. The township board has the authority to allow tree fund, a tree fund amount in replace of actually putting new trees in. If you see from our calculations, about 657 replacement trees are required based on the number of trees that are being removed. 277 are being accounted for, so they're actually putting on site 277 replacement trees. That leaves 380 to be mitigated. We calculate an amount of $171,000 for that amount. So the township board can agree to that amount or some other. I know there's a proposal in the development agreement that I believe some of that money goes towards a fire truck instead of tree mitigation. But that's entirely up to the township board to make that determination if they want to do that. But our calculation is that this project would require $171,000 in mitigation trees, and the township board has the authority to allow that. And that's really our only comment that we don't believe has been addressed.
How much money is in the tree fund right now?
It's $227,769.
Can you do that again?
$222,769.
Okay, thank you. I mean, and so let me ask you this. When was any from the tree fund most recently used?
That's not Doug's job, that's our job.
Okay.
I do have a follow-up question though, if I may.
Okay.
Doug, does the calculation that you did of the trees that are going to be removed from the site, does that include the parcel that is sort of still to be determined? Or are those trees not part of the count?
Not part of the count.
Okay. So presumably when that parcel is developed, then those trees would be counted?
Yes.
Are there further questions?
On which topics?
On whatever topic you would like.
Okay. I have, yeah, I don't know.
I assume you were done, Trustee Noel.
I am done.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I had kind of 3 topics I wanted to talk about, but we can start with trees since Kathy raised it. This morning in our meeting, I was reading through the development agreement for the first time, and I was surprised to see a section 7 and section 8. I'd ask my colleagues to please turn to that. And I really thought, and Joyce, I was sitting next to her, I really thought I must have missed something. Because Joyce, you did such a good job of sending us the summary of where things were at. I think in an email about 2 weeks ago, and thank you for that. I looked back at that email and this aspect was not in there. So I didn't have this information until it was in this proposed development agreement. So I just want to say I have, I think paragraph 7 and 8, I was pretty appalled from a policy point of view to see it in there. I think it does a couple things. I think it creates for the township a unnecessary zero-sum game between priorities for sustainability and trees, and then also our resources for first responders. But I also think it's just really, really bad policy. I know it's legal. I understand that Araya was asked to look into this. I understand it's legal. Others on this board may think it's appropriate. I want to say I think it's entirely inappropriate for this board
to start negotiating away compliance with our local laws. And that's what paragraph 7 does. Paragraph 7 says that the developer, instead of being in strict compliance with section 36.346, they can provide a lesser contribution. Under the calculation set forth as normal, it's $171,000. Under this proposal, it would be $21,000. Now, I think it's neat that the contribution for fire went up to $300,000. However, that is just moving 150 from one bucket, which is not a community benefit. It is a requirement under our zoning ordinance. So I would say if this board does not like our laws, we are the people who change them. But I will not support building into a development agreement a different level of compliance for one project versus another. I'd also say, I handed out the tree ordinance for you, and I just want to remind the board of the intent and the purpose. I'll read the purpose: to encourage the preservation of trees and related natural resources of the woodland ecosystem on undeveloped land and in connection with the development of land, to provide for the protection, preservation, proper maintenance, and use of trees and woodlands in order to minimize damage from erosion and siltation, loss of wildlife and vegetation, and/or from the destruction of natural habitat, to protect trees and woodlands, including woodland resources, for their economic support of local property values when allowed to remain uncleared and unharvested in whole or in significant part, and for their natural beauty, character, and ecological or historical significance, and to provide for the paramount public concern for these natural resources in the interest of the health, safety, and general welfare of residents of the township, in keeping with Article 4, Section 52 of the Michigan Constitution and the intent of the Michigan Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act. We have committed to being sustainable. We have a wonderful environmental sustainability task force. If we want to have integrity, which we heard a lot about earlier, about actually matching our goals with sustainability, we need to use this. I've heard there are funds in the tree fund that we haven't used. Well, shame on us. There's funds in a lot of funds we haven't used. There's a lot of ways we could be a more efficient and effective township, and I think we're starting to make some progress in that direction. We have a wonderful presentation, the breeding bird and invasive plant research report. It was so good, my 8-year-old sat through a whole hour. And one of the recommendations is actually reforesting part of the West Scio Preserve in order to bring back some of the birds. We've heard from Jan about the tree canopy. We've heard concerns from Arborist Groves about the Arborist Groves chopping down 460 trees. We talk about it, but I have to say, I just found it, and this has no bearing on the developer, Lithia, but on this board, and just here we are 2 weeks, not even, after Joyce's update on it, and somehow between, not even at the planning commission, not even from our update from our manager a week and a half ago, but somehow the proposal we have in front of us is to tell the developer, you don't have to contribute the $171,000 because we don't believe our trees are that important. What we think is more important is to show that we've gotten $300,000 to the fire fund. And I don't think that's right. And so I would propose that we restore the full contribution, the regular compliance with our zoning ordinance, just as we would apply to anyone else. And if that means equal reduction in the contribution to the township to its purchase of fire vehicles and apparatus, then I would support that.
Well, an alternative would be to reduce something else, because we could, for example, modify the number of EV charging stations and move some of those funds that would have been spent on that towards the fire equipment.
or the alternative is not to reduce the funds and first of all, I agree 100% with Jessica. I think she's spot on. That the intent of adding the fire station was not to now deplete the tree fund. So how that,
Right. Which is
back angle happened makes no sense to me whatsoever. So I could live with the 171K for the tree fund. I think that's a no-brainer. That's not going anywhere. And the 300,000 for the use of towards the ladder truck. The ladder truck is for their benefit, for their safety, and for the safety of other residents that may need that ladder truck. And I think everybody's not gonna care about the money when their house is on fire, their building's on fire, and somebody needs to be saved. So that's where I stand on it anyways. I'm one vote, but I concur with you 100%.
Well, if we were to do what you were suggesting, Mark, we would be basically requiring Suburban Lithia to put another $150,000 in.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh.
Let me ask a question. We have money in the tree
Couple
fund
cards.
that isn't being used. What if we make up some of the balance with some of that money? I'm just asking, it's hypothetical.
Well, just because we were poor on not executing the money doesn't mean we should continue to do that. I agree with Jessica. We have other funds that we haven't done a good job being expeditious with.
Is there another way to do it?
I think there might be another way to do it, Kathy. I would say on principle, trying to agree that a developer can comply differently with a different law.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like that precedent. I also say, I see Dave Lutton here, a proponent of open space. We have a whole open space, program. I mean, I would say that, paragraph 7 be changed to restore the standard expectation we have of developers to comply normally with zoning ordinance section 36245C2. And then if that means making some changes on community benefit, which I know it would, then we do so. And that may not be in fire, that may be in the EVs. Again, I'm not the one who negotiated this, so I don't have the knowledge to get into that. I can tell you that a contribution toward fire, when we were last at this table, I believe it was 5,000, which I thought was paltry. And I don't think that 150,000 is.
Yeah,
I think it's significant, and it would go towards fire vehicles and apparatus. And that's significant and a meaningful community benefit.
My own comment would be, I don't see the EV stations having any public benefit whatsoever from a Scio perspective. If I'm a Scio resident, I'm gonna charge at home because my cost is 4 times higher to charge at a public station versus for me charging home. So roughly $1 a gallon for me to charge home versus $4 a gallon at a public station. Why would I do that? It'd only be if some kind of emergency. I've got 2 public, electric vehicles, the kids are going somewhere. There's some kind of extenuating circumstance that would drive me to go to that, leverage that station as a Scio resident. So there's really no Scio benefit to those EV stations.
Okay, who's negotiating these community benefits? Isn't there, don't we have a system or something? Because it just seems like.
Not good enough.
Yeah, apparently
Well,
not,
I
because
just-
we're going back, and this isn't.
I wanna remind the board that the board delegated authority for finalizing the agreement. And I
Well,
think
this time, but when it first came to us, I know that they did their best, they studied Scio and what they thought we valued. But then it comes back to us and we need to have some type of system, so it's consistent every time.
Well, rather
because it's
than,
a new development.
I hear you, Trustee Carey, but rather than turn this into a larger discussion, I think it would be helpful if we could stay focused on the substance of what it is that we're trying to resolve. And I think the sense I have, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the board would prefer to restore the full amount that was originally intended to go towards the tree fund. And that the question that remains is whether to simply reduce the amount of the going towards the fire apparatus, or to somehow reconfigure the remaining funds in the agreement to keep that at the full 300,000 or trustee Brazeau's suggestion that the developers simply put more money in. I don't think.
Or just move those monies from the EV stations to the,
Well,
I could care less about the EV.
Okay, so I think that may be the most productive way to resolve this expeditiously this evening, is to look at shifting some of the investment in the EV station towards keeping the full 300,000 for the fire department.
We could, I would say at this juncture, here we are at the board table without the full, cost of all these things. We
Yes.
certainly could, but it's like kind of ballparking. The only number I see to work with is 300,000. And I would just say it's more clear when we get to our next items. I think the board will be pleasantly surprised, with how much progress we've made with the chief, with PM Gap, looking at how we're gonna structure this next assessment. I think they'll be pleased with the funds available, and we need to get the ladder truck and all the other vehicles and apparatus we need. I think 150,000 is meaningful. I think it's simple. Will, if you know the value of the EV stations, I'd be open.
I was just gonna say, I got a ballpark figure. I don't know if it's precise, but I think they're from talking earlier this evening with Jan Culbertson, the EV stations, and you can correct me, they're about $50,000 per EV station. Jan explained to me that they're paired so that you can't really sort of talk about removing odd numbers of EV stations, that you're talking about. Probably if you were to try and come up with $150,000, you'd have to really remove 4 EV stations from the total in order to come up with that figure, and you'd still have a little extra. So we could actually, if that's true, increase the amount going towards the fire department figure if we chose, or towards the tree fund if we chose. And is that correct? Is that back of the envelope number somewhere in the right range?
It's somewhere in the right range, but yeah.
You'll do it.
So how many, how many are proposed currently? I guess I'd have to look at the plans.
Aren't there 12 stations?
I just want to be perfectly clear here and let the record reflect that in order for us to be on the agenda tonight, we were asked to put another $30,000 into the community benefits. So 30,000 more. We were asked to round up the fire truck to 300,000, and we were asked to put $20,000 in for the bus stations.
And let me just chime in a little bit. We're feeling a little bit whipsawed here because last time we were here, by the way, I'm Tyler Tennant, Lithia's outside land use council. The last time we were here, the board delegated the authority to negotiate the community benefits and the remainder of the provisions of the development agreement through Mariah, your township attorney. And Mariah was in close contact with others on the board, as well as the supervisor and the township manager. And so the reason why you were surprised, I think, today is because it did happen in the last few weeks where we negotiated. We said, well, maybe we can take some stuff out of the tree fund if it's legal. Mariah said it was. And so we thought it was a deal, you know?
I understand.
And I totally get what you're saying. You're spot on in terms of policy.
Yeah.
We're just feeling a little whipsawed. And so like,
I understand how you're feeling. I'm just,
And
we're trying
so
to.
what I need to be really clear here is if you want 300,000 in your fire truck fund, then we'll put the 300,000 and we'll back up the tree fund, but we are not gonna start negotiating how much an EV is worth and how much we're putting in your fund.
Right. And
I'm sorry.
I just couldn't hear what you said earlier. You were asked to put 30,000 more
Into the community
and
benefits.
what was the second thing you said?
So it was $10,000 to round up the fire truck fund to 300,000, and it was $20,000 for bus stop improvement.
Bus shelter.
Okay. And so a question to my colleagues, who suggested cutting the tree fund if that was what we asked? I mean, that sounds good, right? Tree fund, was that
that included the tree fund shift, right, to get up to 300,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I think the missed step here is when we had the conversation here last with you about sort of what we were hoping for, I think the board was expecting that there was new money coming into the deal that was going to bring up the amount of the fire truck. And I understand that in the negotiations that occurred since then, Suburban Lithia made clear that the ability to put in significant sums to bring up that figure, you just didn't have that much leeway.
okay.
And that's when I think people got creative about thinking about shifting money from the tree fund. And
Right.
what's become clear in the last few hours, I think, is that the board is not comfortable making that kind of
I would just say, well, that's outside of community benefit entirely.
Well,
So it's unprecedented.
However you want to characterize it, or whatever the reasons are, the board is not comfortable making the shift of funds from the tree fund that figure in order to bring up the money for the fire apparatus. But we still want to have the fire apparatus, right?
And I want to add one more thing here.
Okay.
So I had a gentleman reach out to me from
From our team.
and I made it pretty clear to him where we stood. He said, hey, no problem, Mark. I said, I'd like to see that in writing, so we have crystal clear communication, so there is no misunderstanding. No problem, Mark. I'll have that to you in a couple of days. I never heard from him.
Because we were given direction to have our
Well,
communication.
that may be
go through
true, but then he
Mariah.
called me back again and said, hey, I'm talking to Mariah. I said, great, why don't you send me a copy of what you've negotiated thus far? No problem, I'll do that. So that's twice that he communicated with me and didn't follow up on either thing that he said he was going to do. So, and I know I'm not blaming you on that, I understand, but I'm just saying it wasn't like we weren't whipsawing. I was being very poignant in what I was expecting from this deal. And it certainly wasn't to suddenly to deplete the tree fund. We're pretty big around trees here. I mean, look at our logo. It's a pretty big deal for Scio Township. So the idea that we could deplete that and just swap money would have never flown with me. Again, I'm one vote out of 7.
But I think we're clear, yeah, and this is the first time we've had this policy discussion, but it sounds like we'll reach resolution.
I think there's a place for this to be resolved.
Yeah, there is. I want to resolve it.
So, can I speak? So, it kind of goes to follow up to Jillian's, who negotiates this? And that's a really good question, and this is why when I give my my planning commission reports, it's like, we kind of need to be in sync. And the problem is, I came in on the planning commission when this was at its late stage. These things take months, if not years. There's this pre-meeting, then I come in at the end, and when it left the planning commission, it was maybe a dog park or a park and EV fighting, and then something for the fire and this, so it's like this moving target. So I really appreciate how you guys like, hey, folks, where do you want the funds? Tell us from a policy perspective. And I appreciate you're in, and I get a little frustrated too. But that's just, you might have a planning commission, and we got 6 out of 7 planning commissions, terms expiring at the end of November, and then we're gonna have a new board at next year. So this is like a perennial thing, is how do we go from the envisioning of a project that has public benefits till we sign on the dotted line, because it's malleable. I get the sense that it changes.
But this was a negotiation outside of community benefits, John.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. So, but like Kathy, as Kathy alluded to, we've got 220,000 and we haven't used it. We should have been using it. If we're not using our tree fund, how much do we really value trees? And I don't mean that literally, but we do value trees. Of course, I planted a white pine, a northern red cedar, a burr oak, and a white oak in my yard this summer. So we value trees, but I guess
we can address that.
I'm
John.
frustrated
You
by
know
the
what, we need a
moving
work
target too.
session. This is what we need work sessions for, and I know that you don't wanna do work sessions.
No, I didn't
but-
say that.
No, not you, but we need to do that. See, this should have been complete, that they came back again, and not just them, but I see this over and over again. So this falls back on the township. We need to get together and figure this stuff out. So when we come to a board meeting, a regular board meeting, we look professional.
Well, again, I think, there's the larger questions and then there's the specific development agreement.
What do we do tonight?
Let's stay focused on the development agreement and figuring out how we're going to make the numbers work so that we can move this forward this evening.
So,
Do you
yeah.
have a proposal?
So I would suggest, not ready to make a motion, but I would suggest that we restore paragraph 7 to defer to Mariah to the normal requirement of regular compliance resulting in the contribution of the $171,000 to the township tree fund. In paragraph 8, community benefit, I would propose modification to sub-point 2. I want to ask our applicant about this, what the implication would be for the applicant and what others think about. John Culbertson, the chair of the ESTF, suggested the buildings will be all electric and powered with on-site or off-site renewable energy. So I just have a question about what's the difference and what's the impact there?
So the difference is if.
And sorry, may I just get it all on the table?
Sure.
Thank you. To sub-point 7, developer will make a contribution of $150,000 for use by the township in purchasing fire vehicles and apparatus. Strike equipment, vehicles and apparatus. That makes it clear we're talking about fire trucks. That's my suggested solution here.
Okay, now you want to respond to the question about the powering of the buildings?
Yes, thank you.
Ann?
Sure. The offsite credits, you purchase them from, DTE has a program, you can go out to other energy providers and buy these credits. And so all of the energy that would come into the building would have been sourced from a renewable source.
Okay, and so operationally, what would be the difference with Jan's proposed language, the onsite or
Well,
offsite?
because she
renewable?
would like us someday to put solar panels on the site. And so then we would be using our own solar power to offset our energy usage in addition to buying energy credits from renewable sources.
Okay, so offsite renewable is.
Well, that's already there in a
Yeah,
sense.
in a
It's
sense.
already there. She wants to put in.
Flexibility for you to provide more onsite.
Right.
But given that it's on-site or off-site, is that something you can live with?
Yeah, we can live with it because we'll continue to buy it off-site.
You say that now.
Sure, and I know Mariah's thinking about all of this, thank you, Mariah. So that would be my suggestion, the return 7 to the normal language that we've always required of everyone, 8, sub-point 2 to make that change, and 7, developer will make a contribution of $150,000 for use by the township in purchasing fire vehicles and apparatus. And I will make that a motion.
So can I
I would
counter that or
support
not
that.
counter that or comment on that? I still think the 150 is too low. My impression always was obviously 500. My impression when it came down to 3, I will compromise at this point just because there is a little, to your point, a little bit of confusion that was caused. And these folks did drive out here, and let's call it, let's call it 225. We'll meet in the middle, 225 to 350. I think I can live with that.
What I'm hearing, Mark, is that's outside of the bounds of the negotiation that's already happened.
Well, unless we reduce the number of EV chargers.
And
so
I
that
just
there's-
wanna
We can't get into that. I think Ann's point's right there. We can't get into what's the cost of a charger, not the cost of a charger. That's gonna get confusing,
Mushy.
right? Yeah, it's gonna get
Well,
mushy.
we don't have to tell them how many to reduce it by in order to get to that number, but we could say we would trade off the number of EV chargers in order
That's
to
why
get
keep
to
it hard
that.
dollars.
Yeah,
man.
let's
It's
just
easy
keep
with
it,
$100.
let's just keep it straight dollars. And I mean, I would obviously support a, greater contribution, but it's not up to me.
That's another, so how are they gonna where's the other $75,000 gonna come from?
Lithium motors.
So the people here at the table are gonna come up with another $75,000 tonight?
I'm not expecting them, I don't expect we're gonna get a check tonight, Will.
No,
I mean,
I know, but in order for us to agree to this, somehow.
They have the power and authority to do it, great. They do. That's where I stand.
Okay,
And
that's,
I'm going,
25?
that's where I stand.
Okay.
I think it's what's best for Scio Township. And I think the safety and having a fire truck's important. We've talked about it forever, and that's a reasonable contribution. I don't think that's crazy.
I don't think we're arguing
And
about.
I think, and we've also made a compromise, I think, I agree with Jillian, to her point, we could be a little more coordinated, so we're gonna give up that little bit, because it probably cost them a penny to come out here, so let's give them a credit for
They
that.
flew out here.
Yeah, I understand, I fly all the time. Million miler, I got it. So, agree, so I'm trying to get what I consider fair. And I think that's a reasonable, fair compromise.
Don't we need to have dialogue with them?
Sure,
Yep.
sure. But I mean, we gotta kind of have consensus on our side first, I guess, right?
So.
Yeah, you all talk amongst yourself and decide what you want. We've been asking since July 26th
Yeah.
for you all to decide what you want.
So promote that,
Okay,
modify
all
your
right.
thing, if we vote on it, then they can run it by them.
Okay,
Alright,
so
so,
there's a
um,
motion on the table
and
from
may
Flintoff
I-
and Riser.
Actually, if I may, I want to modify my motion.
Well, the two of you, that's what I'm saying. You would have to modify your motion.
I withdraw my motion. Do I need John's permission on that?
I do like the fire truck apparatus part.
Well, yeah. I was gonna, well, then how about this? I'll keep my motion on the table. I'd like to modify it to 225 instead of the 150 for discussion.
Is that acceptable to you?
It's acceptable to me.
Okay,
So we have a motion on the table made by Flintoff, support by Riser, for 225,000 instead of the 300,000 with the other changes in language. And the restoration of 171,000 for the township tree fund. Is there further discussion?
On the
May I make a comment?
amendment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Amendment or the main motion?
Thank you. No, and we
This
need
is
to,
the amendment to the development agreement. It's a motion to modify the development agreement
in those three areas.
in those three areas, please.
So the language in 7 about the tree fund would come out completely because we would just go back to. Okay,
Statute.
just
Yeah.
to be clear, so
Whatever the standard.
it was, no, there's not going to be any language in the development agreement about the tree fund because it's
separate.
already part of the
Perfect.
site
It
plan.
applies because the ordinance applies.
Because it's a law.
Just want to be clear about that, because
Okay,
if someone
thank you,
reads it
Mariah.
later and
So we're not
Oh, I see
actually
what you're-
modifying
we
that
would-
section, we're removing.
So
that
we
section.
would be
we're
removing.
not removing that section, we are taking out you're suggesting to take out part of paragraph 7.
Yes, to modify paragraph 7.
It's the last sentence that is removed.
Because I believe that was added
Yeah,
just
I
for
think it's
this
just last
language.
sentence.
Yeah, thank you. So it would be, thank you for refining that. So the first part of the motion, with John's concurrence, we would strike the last sentence of paragraph 7, reading, that starts with the township acknowledges and agrees, ... would be struck.
Page 3 at the top, or 3 at the bottom, wrapping the 4 at the top.
Yeah, it's section 7, density land use.
Yeah,
3 bottom, 4 top.
yeah, no, I'm looking at it, and you're saying you would take out the last sentence?
Correct.
Okay.
That's what Mariah is suggesting, right, Mariah?
Well, in order to do what
To
you're.
affect what I'm trying to affect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's the one that starts with the township acknowledges, gotcha. Okay, that's just a really long sentence.
That's what we do, lawyers.
Okay. All right, so that is the motion. It's to modify the development agreement. Is there, I don't want to cut you off, Mariah, if you had
That was
further
it.
comments. That was it?
Yep.
Okay, and the question is on that motion to modify the development agreement. Is there further discussion on that motion?
The amendment, right?
The amendment to the development agreement motion.
We're good. Let's vote.
Okay, Let's call a roll on this.
Brazo,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Riser,
Yes.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Flintoff, yes. Motion adopted 6-0.
So now I guess the question is this?
So
I'll
is
figure it
this,
out. I'll make it work.
is this something we pass for a few minutes, let them have a huddle, and then consider other things and come back? So that they can kind of talk about this?
I think we should,
Or no?
what I'd suggest,
Costs you
John, is why
$75,000.
don't we go through and see if there's, I mean, anything else? Because what we want to do at the end of this is, well, we want to have discussion, see where we're at. And, but are there any other issues such as, you
Well,
know,
yeah, you.
the road or other
You
things?
started out by saying you had 3 things. Have we
Yeah.
dealt with all 3 of your things?
No,
Okay, well, please proceed with your list.
thank you, Will. I just had a question really about the road. But Mariah, would you just remind us, like, what is our role or influence with the road agreement? Do we have any? And how did we, a question too is what have we done to, what role do we have to address these concerns?
Well, it's
If any.
understanding that that's gonna be a public road.
It is a public road.
Just, yeah,
It
so
always has been.
I don't know that. And there's access, I'm not super familiar with the site plan, but there's access from the Lithia property to the public road.
Yeah, so are there any other thoughts on that? If there's,
I mean, I do like what Sally Boss had to say about having signs. I'm sure that that's not the intention, that these transporters would be parking on that
The
road.
ordinance put parking, we have the off-site street parking within the development. That's according to your ordinance, so.
They're identified on the site plan, 3 loading stalls at the north end of the property on site, not in the Delhi Road right away.
Not in the Delhi Road right away.
There's never any intention of doing any parking within that road right away.
The signage would probably help because regardless of what the site plan says, truck drivers probably, will see an opportunity to park somewhere and unless they're prompted by signs not to.
The transporter trucks are coming into our property, and so they're gonna follow our direction. So we're gonna tell the transporter truck where to bring the cars.
Why would they park there?
Yeah, they won't park there.
Because they can't load there.
that was my
It's
impression. I just
not-
wanted to make
it's
sure I
not
wasn't missing
convenient.
anything.
Signage is a requirement of the road commission. You have to put signage in their public right of way, that's their permitting authority.
That's their permitting authority.
It's really a non-issue.
Great.
So that's 2.
Yeah, and the third one was answered when Kathy had followed up already on the outstanding conditions from Doug. Is it, Mariah, do you agree that the planning commission conditions have otherwise been met?
I believe so, yeah. So Doug said that his conditions had been met. OHM said except for this sign question, which I agree, that's it's the road commission who would approve those signs. The other items that the planning commission had made comments about all appear to be resolved.
Okay. And so Mariah, what we have in, ultimately here in this language here, is this?
Is that the development agreement? Sorry, I can't see
Oh, I'm
that
sorry,
far
it's not
away.
the development agreement. That's okay, I don't think most people can. It's the zoning ordinance amendment. Were there any comments on that language or were you good with that?
I believe that we were going to make a change to this paragraph that says, development of the property is subject to all conditions as set forth in the approved site plan. Right now, it says including any conditions recommended by the planning commission. We would take that out and change it to any conditions recommended by the township board.
Okay, great.
And I can do that after the fact.
Okay, that's all.
So we're proposing to amend this.
The resolution.
The resolution.
Yeah. I'll just make a note of that.
To recognize that any conditions that would be required going forward are conditions that this board is putting on the project. Because we're staying at the.
So we're
planning.
changing planning commission to board of trustees.
Right.
Okay. Are there further comments or questions?
I have a question. At night, I've seen at a lot of dealerships, kind of for the security and to prevent theft of the automobiles, which I appreciate, they kind of park cars in front of all the exits. Is that something that you'll likely be doing, or what are the practices in that regard, if you know, at your dealerships?
I think we would use a gate. But right now, the EV park is open till midnight.
Yeah, right.
So our gates are gonna be further back, so we'll use security cameras.
I guess, how do you secure inventory? Because I think it's an ugly look for dealerships to put a bunch of cars.
Yeah,
that-
the driveways will stay open, so the display vehicles that are out in front, there won't be cars blocking them because you have to have the traffic that can flow through the site. We do have some security gates for the inventory that's at the very
Right, and how do-
north of the property. And those are shown on the site plan.
John, I've never seen the BMW dealership or Mercedes dealership now ever block their sites. I've
Yeah.
gone through them.
No, I get that it's different than
Fire
some down the street.
Right,
Chevy dealer might
and
do
then
it.
we'll use security cameras to monitor the site.
I feel like we're verging on sort of dissing the other dealers, but
I'm just saying.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. One last thing, there's, one of the residents had commented about the old buildings, and we've asked this before. You do not own the old buildings, so that's up to the,
Buildings, and we have contacted our landlord. It's called Capital Automotive Development, and they've reached out to you as a township to discuss what the plans are for the buildings once we vacate them. And I can send the contacts again if you guys need them.
usually in my experience, vacated dealerships quickly get occupied by other dealers.
Like the mini dealerships going into what, that thing's never sat empty for a second, it's gone through what, 3 hands or 4 hands?
I'm
Lexus dealership.
less concerned about these buildings than some others along Jackson.
Pizza Hut.
Yeah, well,
It was just the point I was bringing up, that's all. I wasn't.
Let's not go down that path.
Gonna hang my hat on it. So.
Okay, so we have a modification to the PU,
The zoning ordinance.
the zoning ordinance, sorry, thank you. And we have the modification that we just adopted to the development agreement, or the modifications that we just adopted to the development agreement. Do we have any other
The only other
changes or-
thing we'd be approving tonight is the site plan.
I hope we're not gonna get into
No,
that.
I'm fine.
Okay, so with that, is someone prepared to make, we have 2 model motions, and Mariah, I don't know if you need to explain the model motions that you prepared, but there are 2 parts, and so I think we should do them each separately.
And I'm prepared to move to approve OA 23001, the Lithia final PUD site plan based on the planning commission's recommendation of approval, including any conditions listed by the planning commission, which should say Board of Trustees, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And authorize the clerk and supervisors to execute the development agreement and any other documents required.
So we have a motion by Riser, is there support by Brazeau? Is there any further discussion?
Well, I had posed the question to Mariah earlier, do we need the phrase "and any other documents required"?
I don't know that there's anything else that's gonna be signed,
Like, as an example, just your ordinance requires us to record an affidavit or this agreement, I think. So there may be other things that happen.
Well, that's why I usually put it in there, because just in case, you know,
Just
we
in
don't wanna
case.
have to
Yeah.
keep coming back to the board every time.
Miscellaneous
I
stuff.
can't think of anything off the top of my head. I like to leave it.
Well, that's fine, I mean,
Yeah, I don't have anything specific, you know, we talked about with Heritage Woods, we had a lot of extra documents that were gonna be signed and passed around. This one doesn't have that complication.
No wastewater treatment plant.
No wastewater treatment plant.
Right,
but if the board is comfortable, I think I would leave that, you know, for the reason that Mr. Tennant stated and the fact that we're not, every time something needs to be signed, we're not coming back for more signatures or more approvals.
More approvals for signatures. In that case, unless there's further comments, please call the roll.
Rizzo,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Riser,
Yes.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Flintoff, yes. Motion adopted 6-0.
Is someone prepared to make the second motion to adopt the zoning ordinance amendment for Lithia PUD OA number 23001
As amended
as amended?
here
Yes.
tonight.
I would so move.
I'll second.
No.
Okay, Riser and Carrie.
Go, Gary, go.
You're fast. All right, so if there's no further discussion, please call a roll on the second motion.
Rizzo,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Riser,
Yes.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Flintoff, yes. Motion passes 6-0.
We're done. Congratulations.
Why are you shaking your head no? Supposed to be shaking your head yes.
It's a little unbelievable at this point.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
Let's not spoil the mood. All right. Let's move on to item J2. This is a resolution to confirm the roles for the Fire Services Special Assessment District. Clerk Flintoff, please introduce this item.
Oh, sure, and the chief is here. Thank you, chief. This is approved by interim finance director consultant Brian Kamiller, township attorney Mariah Fink, township assessor Garrett. Recommended by the chief and me. It is the next step in our process to establish the fire SAD. We of course already have one, but are going through the steps. You'll remember we had preliminarily approved the 3 potential roles on August 8th for 1.35, or if passed by voters on November 7th, up to 3.75 for operating and up to 0.75 for capital. So this would finally confirm those roles, and they've been open for public inspection all this time.
Can I move the approved proposed resolution to confirm the special assessment roles
I think-
approved?
No.
I think she had her
Yeah.
hand up
Oh,
first.
okay.
Yeah, so reading through this,
I just want to get on the floor.
yeah, be it further resolved, the very last.
Yep.
So, okay,
Yeah.
the way I read this was, and I just made a note, so this was a couple days ago, the
Sure.
amount of the special assessment
Yeah.
levy for tax year 2023 shall be 1.35 mils.
Mhm.
If voters approved, then of course it would go up depending on
Yep.
what we needed.
Mhm.
But if it doesn't, if it does not approve, is not approved, then could we have some language that states that it would still be 1.35? Because I'm just,
I think this
does
says that.
does it? Okay.
So, but if there's a way to strengthen it, I think it says it in this first sentence.
The first,
So be it further resolved, the amount of the special assessment levy for tax year 2023, that's what we bill on December 1, shall be 1.35.
right, but that's for 2023.
That's,
But okay, so if it doesn't pass, then we have to come back next year and do,
so,
have another
So-
tax year 1.35?
so tax year 2023, it is this year, and it will be billed December 1st, 2023, and it shall be 1.35, which we already have authorized by voters. And then it gives 2 different scenarios. If the voters approve only the operating question, then it will be up to 3.75. If they approve both the operating and capital, then it will be up to the 4.75, Mariah?
Oh, I think the question I hear trustee Carrie asking is this only for 1 year? Or is it something, do we have to come back every year to set the 1.35? Is that what you're
Yes.
asking?
Let's just say,
I'm sorry, you're confirming these roles once, okay? So this is the last step
in the process we're doing this year. The thing that we'll do every year is the next agenda item, which is setting the public hearing for the annual determination of how much up to one of these three limits we're going to assess annually.
Is it worded correctly to do that? Shouldn't the first one shall be up to 1.35 mils also?
Oh, you're right, Will, that's a good catch.
Yeah, and so I had, and thereon, if voters do not approve the two ballot
If
questions.
voters,
So that's where I was a little confused, like,
Yeah.
okay, let's just put aside, let's say that,
so it's three scenarios, and I agree with the up to, Will.
yeah, but if these don't pass, we're
Yeah.
not putting that intention out there, or one way or another, but if it doesn't, so it just says the year 2023 shall be 1.35 mils.
Yep.
And then,
Shall be up to 1.35 mils, and that's
Yeah,
what
up
we
to.
would be working with
next.
on November 14th, when we have the public hearing and determine how much we're gonna assess on December 1st.
So in 2024, it would still be 1.35 mils. We would have to do this again,
Up
or
to 1.35.
1.35.
Yep, because we passed that with voters in 2019 for
10-year
our assumption is we meant 10 years, yeah.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yes, I forgot about the 10 years, so never mind.
Yeah, so this
You
is
did-
the
Just, yeah, that
setting the
answers my
roles.
questions. Yes. And we have to have a public hearing every year anyway.
Yes, that's
And
how
I
it
forgot
works.
about the 10 years, so that's where I was looking at this from a resident's point of view, not knowing any of this, or not, having the history, and then I was like, oh, what if, this would be a little confusing for them,
This
but
is very confusing. But this is the last step
yes,
in this process.
okay. And we need to do this now before the vote?
So I want to do this now, and the reason is so that we are prepared to have time to have the hearing and be ready to assess on December 1st. So this is why we've had this, why we've been so on top of it, frankly.
We've been following a schedule of required steps in order to implement this.
Okay.
I would, if I may speak, I would move to approve the proposed resolution to confirm the special assessment rolls approved on August 8th, 2023 as presented,
With the change.
As amended.
as amended. Well, I guess that's how we done it, but that's amended.
That's for J2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Riser, support by Brazeau. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Brazeau?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Riser?
Yes.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Flintoff? Yes. Resolution adopted 6-0.
Okay, that brings us to item J3, possible action resolution to set a public hearing for November 14th, 7 p.m. to establish fire levy rate for tax year 2023. And again, I turn to Clerk Flintoff.
Great, and I'd ask if you'd be so kind to look at what was included in your packet, plus this very drafty draft. This is the draft backside of the public hearing notice. And this, again, is what we would do annually, what we have done annually, but we're doing with a little more discipline from henceforth. Again, approved by all the people who need to be involved here. And this would be to set a public hearing for November 14th at 7 p.m. to establish the fire levy rate for tax year 2023. We're gonna have this hearing on November 14th, whether or not November 7th goes up or down. And we want to decide now that we're having the hearing because we want to give people as much time as possible and ourselves. Certainly, I'm sure you've reviewed the resolution to remind yourself of the background of what we're doing. This would fix the hearing for that date And it would also say that our intention is to in fact set the levy on November 14th. You'll also notice on the second page, be it further resolved that on the December 1st, 2023 assessment is recognized as revenue in fiscal year 2024. That's very significant. I want to thank the chief. I want to thank Brian Kamiller. I want to thank Mariah Fink. This would resolve issue I've brought to this board for about 2 years regarding the revenue recognition of the fire funds. And it will allow us to use our funds most efficiently. Chief, do you want to talk a little bit about what you envision happening on November 14th and tell us a little bit about the work you've done with Brian here?
Sure, yeah, so thank you, board. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I've had the privilege of working with our PM Gap accounting staff and really going over these issues in detail. And I think that they really understand how this should work and where we're at departmentally. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what this would provide if the voters were to pass this and what an assessment may look like in the first year. So this draft document you have in front of you, we looked at the costs that we would ask the board to adopt this fiscal year. That would be an inclusion of hiring 3 additional firefighters. Put a deposit on a water tanker. A vehicle of this type is a replacement need for the one we have. It's nearing the end of its life expectancy. And we have 18 to 24 month lead times on those vehicles. So we need to get an order in their vendor system so we get it in a timely manner. Funding of the fire department capital plan. Some years ago, the board adopted a capital improvement plan. We refined that further to include equipment replacement. And we have some pieces of equipment that are relatively expensive and fall under the capital category of the township. And we have not been saving money to replace those. This would correct that, and we would begin saving every budget year funds in reserve so that, for example, when our Hearst tools reach the end of their life expectancy or our air packs, we have funds available to replace those pieces of equipment. And again, this is only capital equipment, not day-to-day lower cost items. And then last, the township board has an existing policy that we maintain 9 months of fund balance. Currently, our fund balance does not meet that requirement. This would dedicate funds to do that as well. Additionally, if voters do support these new assessments, I would be asking for 0.5 mils. I apologize, let me back up. That total ask that I would be bringing to the board would be 1.4021 operating mils. Secondarily, if voters approve the capital plan and operating plan, we would need some funds to work with to begin the process of building a fire station. I'd be requesting funds to have our architect complete construction documents. And as well, with that time frame in mind of 18 to 24 months for apparatus, I would ask for money down so that we can place deposits on those apparatus as well for the new fire station. And that would come from the capital side. And again, that's a total of 0.5 mils.
And I want to just say, this is all subject to change, but not by much. We just weren't able to connect with Brian since Friday in the drafts back and forth. So this would be the backside of the public notice, the front side included in the resolution. So your approval here tonight would be approving the notice in substantially the following form, understanding that internally we're going to work this through a little bit more, but it gives you a sense of I'm proud that we're able to have enough information to share with voters, you know, what we're going to be considering on November 14th.
So this is the language of the notice here. Now.
That's the front, and this would be the back.
Okay, gotcha. The
Are you ready for a motion?
Well, I don't know. If the board has
Well, you can make the motion, then we can continue talking if people have.
Yeah, or we
questions,
can talk before the motion.
Whatever.
I move to adopt the resolution to call for an annual hearing to consider the proposed expenses for the fire services as proposed and amended.
I don't think we amended it.
Yeah,
did we?
well,
As proposed. It's a substitute.
This is why I always suggest discussion before.
I know, as proposed.
Either way, we can fix it. So is there a second?
I'll second.
So moved by Riser, support by Brazo. Further discussion, trustee Carey.
In the third paragraph from the bottom.
Which page?
Oh,
Whereas.
221, the whereas the Township Police and Fire Protection Act 33, 1951 requires that the township board shall annually hold a hearing on the estimated costs and expenses of police
And
and
fire,
fire. We don't need to have police in there.
right? Mariah, could we go with fire and emergency services?
Because we don't set for sheriff.
I think that's from the statute though.
Yeah.
So,
Well, except we're not funding the police.
Right.
With this mechanism.
no, I know that, but I think that the language is.
Yeah, it
Is that
requires,
whereas?
it requires a township board to do that, if it, yeah.
Yeah, what paragraph are we looking at?
It would be the whereas, the
The
third
final
from the
whereas.
bottom.
This one?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the act, the Township Police and Fire Protection Act requires
yes.
that there be, yeah,
But I agree with Jillian.
just fire protection.
Yes.
Well, not, I don't think the change would be there. I think it's further in the whereas clause.
Right. Towards the end of it. So if it just said the
Well,
estimated.
But it's also just a whereas clause and not a be it result.
Yeah, and that is what the statute
Fine,
says.
yeah.
So I would just leave it.
Yeah.
It
I
doesn't
just don't
bind
want-
us in any way.
It doesn't bind you in any way.
If anybody reads this, I don't want them to think that we're gonna be doing this for police as well.
Yeah, well, this is.
You can't change the name of the act.
And
Yeah, I'm not changing the name of the act, it's just later
No,
on.
I
in the
understand.
whereas.
Right.
With people may still come away confused, even if we changed the language in the whereas clause, and left the name of the act.
No, that's the name of the act. Okay.
Further discussion? Please call or, yes, exactly.
Brazo,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Noel,
yes.
Riser,
Yes.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Flintoff, yes. Resolution adopted.
Thank you,
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Be tuning in remotely if you need anything else from me.
Well, I
We
had,
did move you up in the agenda.
Appreciate it.
You don't have to say you're tuning in remotely.
Guys, have a good night.
Okay, bye, Andy.
okay, well, I thought that the treasurer would have joined us by this point. And obviously that didn't happen. We have, the next items are well, we'll do them one at a time, obviously. J4 is the approval of a refund of excess funds collected for the Glade Special Assessment District.
So the only question I have is, it's my understanding that Andrea's on vacation and Donna's not here. So is this something we should put off, or is time of the essence? Or is it, I know if it's something that's likely to pass because it's statutory, we just do it?
I don't see any, I honestly, I know Andrea's put in her full, I defer to Donna. If Donna wanted to be here, I'm happy to table it. I don't think it's.
I'm in support of
urgent.
both of these
Yeah.
as is without any changes, but that's me.
Me too. But Donna did want to be here.
Well, I think she wanted to be here because she felt responsible for these, but we've had a lot of discussion since she first communicated that desire, and I think we've clarified that the way that it's written as a credit is following
It sure is.
the appropriate statute, and if there's a need to correct it, there is a flexibility to do so.
There's no correction.
Well, the correction would be if you can't somehow do the credit for some reason.
We can.
Yeah, so I guess because it's been approved by our finance director, our township attorney, township assessor Garrett, and most importantly, it's my understanding that township manager Joyce Parker is also supportive of this.
Yes.
I would move the model motion to adopt the resolution to call I'm an idiot for putting J3 not down. Rather, to adopt the proposed resolution to refund the surplus special assessment district funds from Scio Township Special Assessment District number 203
2013-4.
-4 as presented. And just, we're talking about the Glade Assessment District.
Yes, so moved by Riser, support by Flintoff. I just didn't see who spoke. And is there further discussion? Okay, please call the roll.
Rizzo? Carrie?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Riser?
Yes.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Flintoff? Yes, motion, resolution adopted 6-0.
All right, so now we are on J5, and I would like to start off by saying that I will propose to abstain from voting on this because I happen to be one of the property owners, and my family also owns property and would benefit from the refund, even though we sort of, well, I won't say anymore. I propose to abstain.
Okay,
For that.
for the,
Do we need to vote on that?
I think that the board has to approve the
I would
abstention.
support your motion to abstain.
Okay,
Second.
Sure. I move it.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, so I'm abstaining. Is there further discussion?
yes. Just a quick correction, from our finance manager. It just, one number is wrong, appearing twice in the resolution. It's a matter of sense, but I want to get it corrected. The, fourth whereas, instead of 52 cents, it is 8 cents. And again, it appears number 1, instead of 52 cents, it is 8 cents.
Hey, she's a clerk, that's her job.
I know, we got it down to the
Good
penny.
for her. I like it.
I would move adopt the proposed resolution to refund surplus special assessment district funds from Scio Township Special Assessment District number 2013-3 as presented, or as amended rather, and we're specifically talking about the Rose Drive Special Assessment District on this one.
So moved by Riser, support by Brazeau. Please call the roll.
Brazeau?
Yes.
Okay, Carrie?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Riser?
Yes.
Hathaway?
I'm abstaining.
That's right, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Flintoff, yes. Motion adopted 5-0 with 1 abstention.
Okay, that brings us to, I know, it cracks everybody up. Slim Chickens. And
Are they here?
well, I believe Doug is still here. I know that they were going to participate remotely, so the applicant is represented as well. Is Doug still on and ready to speak?
And can I just start with a question for Mariah and Doug?
Sure.
The motion conditions differ in the model motion from the proposed CUP included in the packet. And so in the course of this discussion, if one of you could please direct us to the right set of conditions. Thank you.
Okay. I would, as far as the conditions go, I would go with what's in our special land use review with the conditions.
So that's
on page 4 of our report to memo to the to the township board. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't put together the first page, so if there's a difference, maybe that can be just explained. I can only say what's in really our September 1st memo to the board, so I would stick with those. But that being said, let me just talk a little bit about the process so everyone's clear what we're looking at here. So this is a conditional land use request to allow a drive-through facility within the Jackson Road Overlay District as part of a mixed-use development. This goes back. This mixed-use development goes back quite a number of years to when the condominium project was first constructed to the west of this site, and that there were two outlots, two commercial outlots left along Z Road that were to be constructed in a commercial manner at some time in the future. And that time in the future is now. Actually, one of those lots has already been constructed, and that's where Leo's Coney Island is, and the Lux Salon. This will be the final outlot of this mixed-use project that was approved a number of years ago by the township. So as a conditional land use, this is a part of a two-step process. So the first thing we're looking at today is trying to make a determination if the use is acceptable in this location. And if the use is acceptable, hence conditional land use, the applicant can then move forward with detailed site plans. Detailed site plans would get into, full construction drawings and floor plans and elevations and stormwater detention calculations and all those sorts of things. And in any of the conditions, that you see on our report are really final site plan issues. So these could be made condition. These could be made, if the township board is so inclined to recommend approval of this tonight, these conditions could be added, and they would be addressed as part of the site plan review process. So two-step process. Right now, we're just talking about the use. And in addition to our memo of September 1st, we have in your packet, you should have our conditional use review of July 20th, 2023, where we give a good summary of the project and talk about the conditional land use standards. We did ask for some additional information at the time on July 20th. The applicant addressed those comments to the Planning Commission to their satisfaction with regard to things like hours of operation, number of employees, operation of the drive-through, and things like that. And if the applicant is here, I'm sure she can provide some more detail on those items. You also have OHM's letter and a narrative by Plaza Street Partners, who is the developer for the Slim Chicken site. And I believe also what would be really considered a preliminary site plan, which is what's required for the stage review. So at this point, we are recommending approval with those conditions that are shown in our development review. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Supervisor.
I just want us to be very clear about which of your conditional use, which items we should be looking at and incorporate into the actual conditional use permit. Not the ones that are in the draft conditional use permit, or.
Yeah, could we maybe just read through them just to make sure we're clear?
Anything to do with these.
Oh, you haven't worked on this? Okay. So there's a conditional use permit included in our packet. Maybe we should work from that.
Yeah.
Here. 350.
It might be page 4 of the September 1st Carlisle Workman report.
It could be. It could
Is that
also
right?
be the proposed conditional use permit
Okay.
that we would be approving tonight. So it says, I don't know, do you have the Carlisle Workman report that Doug referenced in the packet? I couldn't find it. Do you have it, Joyce?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think this
It
is
was
it.
the first one.
Okay.
So it's the one dated
It's
September 1st.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see it now.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
September
Thank
1st,
you.
yeah. Right, it's on the 4th page, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
To the back.
Okay. Your pages probably changed, but.
Yeah, the pages of the packets vary depending on when you print
So
it out.
where- Okay,
231, okay.
so we have what we're actually approving is the conditional use permit. So that's what's in our packet. Grants the permit subject to the following conditions. 1, safe pedestrian access be provided from Arbor Chase Road and from Zeeb Road, and that such safe pedestrian access be placed on the plans. Check. Resolution of any outstanding items called out in the June 29th OHM letter.
So that varies.
That varies. So Doug, are all of the outstanding items called out in the July 20th Carlisle Wortman review letter addressed?
Oh, wait,
Yes,
no, it's
these-
item 3.
I understand, well, but
Oh,
there's
okay.
a item 2 that says in our conditional use permit, it says that there are outstanding items called out in the July 20th Carlisle Wortman review letter. Should that be a condition?
You could make that a condition. It wouldn't hurt. I think they've addressed everything, but you certainly could make that a condition.
Okay, so
And then
that,
the
leave that
July-
in.
July 29th OHM review letter, compliance with requirements attached to the original development of Meyer and the condo apartment developments as listed on the preliminary site plan, and then call out any changes made prior to the site plan review stage.
The only change really is the addition of item 2.
Which appears in our CUP.
Right, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. So we could approve
Yep.
the attached conditional use permit if with Doug's approval of that additional item, which is resolution of outstanding items called out in the July 20th, 2023 Carlisle Wortman review letter. So there's an extra thing in here that's why it doesn't.
Right, he
mention.
said that's okay.
Yes,
as far as he's concerned.
it's all right. So is someone prepared to move approval of the conditional use permit?
I'm prepared to move the model motion.
So to approve the
That's
attached
Different
slim,
than what?
well, let's read it and then we'll modify it if necessary. To approve the attached Slim Chickens drive-through conditional use 5505 Arbor Chase Drive permit CU number 23010, based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission with the following conditions as provided in the minutes of their regular meeting held on August 14th, 2023. And
That's already different, Will.
well,
No, I'm done, I'm just clarifying. What we just established was this conditional use permit as presented seems to be what we want to
so we would just
consider.
cross out
So,
the
a
condition.
whole different page. So not even the model motion, because I think that's what's tripping us up. It's just this right here.
All right, so we want to approve the attached Slim Chickens drive-through conditional use permit number CU number 23010
As presented.
as presented
Yep.
in the attached
Mhm.
permit.
Support.
Okay, so that's Riser.
No, that's
Flintoff.
Hathaway and Flintoff.
No, Riser made the motion.
No,
You just
he made
did.
a model motion that was
I defer
totally
to you.
different.
Oh, all right, Hathaway and Flintoff then. That's fine. Is there further discussion? Please call the roll.
Brazo,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Noel. Yes. Riser,
Yes.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Flintoff, yes. Motion adopted 6-0.
Okay, and now we have agenda item J7. And
Point of information, Doug, you need any more? Doug, are you need any more on items?
Doug, you are not
Finance
needing.
director,
I don't think so. Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome.
Have a good
Have
night.
have a good night, everybody.
And Sally, I guess, can go as well. She hasn't already.
Thank you, Sally.
and then,
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
and I'd also object if Mariah wants to leave, given that.
You
the
object
legal-
if she wants
I
to
would not object if she wants to leave, given that the legal matter.
Let's just have her stay. We're almost done.
Okay.
Something might come up, Mariah. You
Okay.
never know. You never know.
She might have to throw her a yellow flag.
Just trying to help you out.
So I would like to turn to our township manager for the introduction of this item.
Okay. Basically, the Michigan Department of Treasury has a technical assistance reimbursement grant program for communities to address certain items such as finance, OPEB, and other operational issues. And what is being requested is to authorize me to submit a letter of request for reimbursement related to the expenses for the Plant Moran agreement, as well as a separate proposal related to evaluating our operational procedures and documenting procedures for the township. Standard operating procedures.
I think it sounds great.
Yours.
And Joyce,
Yeah.
Joyce, I think this is great. Is the standard operating procedures, would you anticipate might be kind of across the township?
Yes,
Okay.
in all departments.
All departments, okay.
Yes.
And so I might, to that, I'm just thinking this, it might offset costs in general fund, finance, accounting, or other areas. It's not part of the motion, I just, I'm just thinking through about that. I think that's great. I, certainly didn't know about this grant funding. I think we're, can really use the technical assistance and appreciate it.
Was someone prepared to make the model motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Flintoff to authorize the manager to submit a letter of application to the Michigan Department of Treasury for reimbursement of expenses for finance director services and for expenses related to documenting department policies and standard operating procedures. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Karen. I don't think we need to have a roll call. Can we just say by acclamation, all those in favor say aye? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to our second round of public comment. This is a time for members of the public to speak for up to 3 minutes on any matter under the purview of the Board of Trustees. We still have a member of the public present. Kathleen, would you like to speak?
Just say one thing, I would like to thank Manager Parker for your knowledge. We just saw a good example of that. You are contributing greatly to our financial success. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone participating remotely who would like to speak during our second public comment?
Several, Rob, Patton, who has his hand on, I'm gonna ask him from you. Rob, you live?
First of all, Trustee Riser, thank you very much for making sure that Doug Lawan and Stacy Voss and other staff people are acknowledged at the end of these presentations. So often you move on to the next thing and you never bother to thank the people that are helping you make these decisions. It's a very small effort and a common courtesy that you could pay to these people. So thank you, Trustee Riser, for making sure that happened. I have a question, and that is, who was responsible or who negotiated tonight's Lithia document that came before the board? Okay, then let's be more specific. Trustee Brazeau, were you involved in the negotiations?
So here's what happened. They called me and said, hey, we'd like to negotiate. I said, fantastic. Why don't you put your offer on the table? Because I believe me, I'm in sales. I'm in the art of negotiation, right? And I never negotiate against myself. So I said, you start out by putting the offer on the table. Great, I'll get back to you. Didn't hear from him for days. He called me again and said, well, I'm working with our attorney. I said, great, that's a step in the right direction. What have you worked out thus far? He said, fire department, we've increased it to 300 grand. Didn't say about depletion of other funds. I said, great, that's a good start. I'd like to see that in writing. Great, I'll send it to you. I'll send it right over to you. Never saw it. So I don't want to step on the toes of my constituents. So at that point, I bowed out, assuming that, and I probably should have followed up with Mariah just to make sure that's what I was hearing, what you were being communicated to, but that obviously came apart. So that won't happen a second time, I can tell you that, but I think we wound up in a pretty good spot overall. They started off with 5 grand, we went to 225,000, so.
But I think we should go around and just
Yes,
kind of
please.
share, because I think we're refining our processes. I was not involved in this negotiation. I knew that Manager Parker and I know that Mariah was running point on it, but getting input from several board members. I do have a question. Who put the compliance with the tree ordinance on the table in the negotiation?
I don't think we actually know.
I didn't talk with them at all.
Who did?
I didn't talk with them at all.
And I do want to make it clear, I did tell them, once you guys send something to me, I'm gonna send it to the rest of the board to get everybody's buy-in and review.
Sure,
So I
but-
wasn't gonna do this, by the way, in a vacuum.
But,
That was never my intent.
I'm just asking because truly Joyce has done a great job of communicating.
Yeah.
And she communicated out in her written report to where things were at. And compliance with the zoning ordinance with our woodland protection and tree fund. So I haven't heard an answer yet from John or Will. Who put it on the table? In the negotiation, who raised the idea of not complying with our tree fund ordinance?
I got a call from a consultant. I gave him, he asked if
A
I.
consultant for them?
Yes,
Okay,
and I gave him Mark's name and number, and I may or may not have given him Kathy's. I don't know, did he call you Kathy?
no.
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
so yeah, just tell us how this evolved.
so he called me, talked about what was going on. I said, listen, these people have been asking for a fire ladder truck, and then he wanted to talk to Mark, he talked to Mark, and then I think things evolved from there.
Okay, so who came up with the idea of granting them, I'm looking around because I have a hard time believing that the developer came up with the idea that they not comply with our zoning ordinance related to the tree fund.
Why? Because that is something they talked about with the planning commission. I think it came up in discussions. They were pushing back on it at the planning commission, isn't that right?
My recollection, but-
The tree fund. I think
Yeah,
what happened,
I know
here's my,
Jan was
since you wanted to
today
go
when she
around,
found out.
and I'm the
Shocked.
only person who hasn't responded, why don't I have a turn and share what I know, okay?
Okay.
So this board delegated to our township attorney to talk with them and resolve the community benefits issues.
Right.
And I think my understanding is that they sat down and they said, well, look, we've got a limited pot. We're putting this much in for the tree fund. And we heard from your board that they want more for the fire department. We can move things over from here, because originally our list had infrastructure, right? They were gonna put money in for offsite water and sewer. That's not there anymore. They were moving things in there and trying to get to a number that would meet what we were looking for, be closer to what we were looking for in terms of commitment to the fire department. And somehow they started talking about the tree fund. I don't know who first proposed it, but I don't think any of us around this table were in that conversation.
Okay, so
I just want to say for the record, it is not a community benefit. It is different. It's a different part of the negotiation. I'm not saying it's not something that's appropriate to consider as part of a development agreement. I'm saying that is beyond, and I do think it's inappropriate to mix it. So I just gotta say, once again, we need to continue to empower and support our township manager and our township attorney to negotiate these. I know in Goodrich, I've taken a particular interest in it. I've sat down with them, but I'm not having any outside conversations with the developer. We're all working together. So I just think, I'm not saying outside conversations are good or bad, they might be advantageous, but you just guys gotta recognize that you don't have all the information when you're talking to these developers. And so we just gotta coordinate more.
Let's continue. Rob, you're sort of interrupted.
So Rob, you got 2 minutes left, sorry, man.
No worries. First of all, thank you all for responding. Primarily you, Supervisor Hathaway. Here's what I noticed during this negotiation tonight, is that you were, and here's why I assumed that you were primarily responsible for that document, because you were acting more as an advocate for the developer rather than an advocate for the residents. And I think it's not a big deal, but the whole point is, this is why it would be good if we had an in-house planner who could negotiate these sorts of things with our manager and our attorney, and that would leave this body open for doing the negotiations at the table. and not having anybody fall into that advocate role. Another thing that happened tonight is you missed the 400 amp chargers. Making sure that Trustee Brazeau wrote in his email, what are we going to get? 50 amp chargers, 400 amp chargers? That was not identified in the document. And then also not identified in the document that Trustee Brazeau wrote about was that there was no guarantee that the fourth land unit would be developed in mixed use. So that got missed. And then there was no guarantee that the charging units would be maintained so that they constantly work in long term in the future. And there was another point in your email that I can't recall, Trustee Brazeau, that was missed tonight. And that's
I'm not gonna argue with you, Rob, you're spot on, but you know, at this point, we were down the road, we were at where we're at. So I just said, you know, we need to get a deal. I wanna do the best I can for the township and with my constituency board as a team. And I think we came up with the best deal we could, given the circumstances that we may have placed some of ourselves in. I think we have to reflect and have a meeting, a separate special meeting to review on how not to do. We don't walk in here again.
Totally agree. And thank you, Trustee Brazeau, for tonight. You sticking to your guns got an extra $75,000 out of the deal. Now, one last thing. You made Chief Hood wait 2 hours and 41 minutes. And shame on you all for doing that. We know that for some reason, Supervisor Hathaway, you always put the chief at the end. And why we can't put the chief at the beginning, I don't understand. 2 hours and 41 minutes, nobody caught it. And he sat there for 2 hours and 41 minutes. Again, 2 years into asking for some consideration for the staff and the people who work for all of us residents. And remember, the fire department is the only group that saves lives. That means that Chief Hood is the most important person in Scio Township government. Therefore, a little respect shown to him would go a long way. So thank you all. Well done tonight. I appreciate the civility that you all showed one another.
Who's next?
Paula G is up. Thanks, Rob. Paula G is up. I'm asking you to unmute, Paula.
Thank you, John. Anyway, I want to thank Clerk Flintoff, if we're all going to thank someone, for bringing it up about the tree fund. And I still have a lot of concern about the Arbre Grove and how that was approved. It's not the current board members, but how that was approved when there was kind of a tight hold on the Board of Trustees at that time. And I'm still concerned when you drive down Baker Road towards Dexter, you see a future home, I think it said on their little tiny sign, about the annexation, a part of Scio into Dexter. And I'm not for that. But anyway, thanks again for catching the thing about the trees, because they're going to destroy a vernal forest over here. And whether the money goes into a tree fund or not, that habitat will be destroyed on Zeeb. And Zeeb is still a mess to drive down. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. I'm sorry. I'm asking David Reed to unmute and come in. David,
Thanks, John. Thanks, John. David Reed, South Township. I have to say this meeting was extremely disappointing, especially you, Mr. Supervisor. As Rob Pattinson said, tonight you acted as a shill for the developer, trying to negotiate how many EV stations to give up in order to make the required tree fund. That's ridiculous. Township does not need another dealership. We have enough dealerships. We do not need to kowtow to this developer for another dealership. There are rules in our township. Their ordinance says there's X number of dollars per tree, and that worked out to $171,000. That's a hell of a lot of trees they're cutting down. And for them to try to negotiate down to 21,000, that's unconscionable. How many pounds of carbon dioxide does a dollar bill sequester? 0. You cannot you cannot, as a township, say you want to be environmentally sustainable by, what is it, 2030, 2035? And allow a developer to cut down God knows how many trees and then just simply write a check. It does nothing.
381.
I'm sorry?
381.
Thank you, thank you. That's a horrendous number of trees to cut down. Now, some of them may be invasive, that's one thing, but they all sequester carbon. And if you guys want to be an environmentally sustainable township, as Jan talked about earlier tonight, writing a check does not do it. And writing a check for 20,000 is an insult and it's unconscionable. So I'm glad you guys stuck to your guns. But quite frankly, if a developer doesn't want to pay for our rules, tell them to go somewhere else. We don't need another dealership in this township. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam Boyd, you are up, please, unmute.
Thank you, trustee Riser. My question to the board is kind of twofold. So Clerk Flintoff, it's coming up pretty soon where you will be setting the schedule for the 2024 board meetings. I would like to request that this board schedules a working session once a month for the 2024 season to work out and work on some of these issues that you have during the board meetings, so the board meetings don't go so long. Thank you very much.
Good advice. Thank you.
Thank you. That is all the hands I see raised. There are others present, but they haven't raised their hands. So I'm turning it over to you, Will, for anyone else.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Moved by Brazeau, support by Noel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we are adjourned at 10:21.
You turn on the recording off, or I think you gotta turn
Thank
everything off.
you.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that, yeah.
Recording stopped or something. I heard the recording stop, so
Do I end the meeting or stop?
Waiting for the seatbelt ding to go off on the plane.
Yeah.
You are now free to move about the